CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and you're listening on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube this morning. Nice to see you. It is 13 degrees in Winnipeg right now, and we'll get into our forecast in a moment. Let's say good morning to the team. Why waste time? 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're all going to be with you until 8:37. Corey Funk's directing the show. Hi, Corey. Corey is also going to be on the air covering the commute. Kevin Nipatebo about to say hello. There's Kevin. Oh, a thumbs up today, Kev, instead of a wave. I like it. Stylish, too. On YouTube, you always see Kevin waving hello. Kevin is our YouTube producer. And Abby Adeyemi, good morning to you. Abby's going to be on air with us covering the weather forecast. Abby is also our technical producer on the show. So the commute so far, so good, so early. The number to call Corey, if you are out there early and saying, oh, I need to report this, 788-3093. Speaking of reports, Heather Wells is back in our news center today with your headlines.
Good morning. Well, some parents in Winnipeg's largest school division aren't happy the Winnipeg School Division is asking its schools to limit fundraising. The division argues fundraising can be a barrier for families and can reveal disparities between schools. Peter Reimer has children in division schools. He says officials should not be dictating to parents whether they can fundraise. Another parent argues schools are already cash-strapped and need the money they get from fundraising. So we'll hear more about that as well. Remote First Nations across Canada are struggling to support pregnant women in their communities. We're going to take you to one community, Opaskwayak Cree Nation, which has hired 3 doulas for support. Those stories and more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It will be mainly sunny today in Winnipeg, which will be nice. Our high will be 21 degrees, so it looks like it's going to be a beautiful fall day. In Brandon, a high of 23, a mix of sun and cloud, also looking pretty nice. Thompson with increasing cloud, different story up north, a 60% chance of showers late this morning, and it's already quite foggy this morning in Thompson, if that's where you're waking. Well, on the show today in the first hour, there's not a one-stop size-fits-all solution to raising children, but we're going to explore something that people are talking about right now called gentle parenting, so stay tuned. We'll also hear more about Harvest Manitoba here in our province, expanding their scope to make sure kids attend school in the process. We'll hear what that's about.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
The Canadian actor Elliot Page teamed up with the British director Dominic Savage to make the new movie Close to You, an improvised film about a trans man coming home to his family in small-town Ontario. They'll be here to talk about the film and what happens when you tell a story like this without a script.
I'm really okay. In so many ways I am for the first time.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The United States is sending more troops to the Middle East. The Pentagon will not say how many or give details of their exact mission, but it is a response to the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Vehicles on the main road were in gridlock leading out of southern Lebanon. People tried to flee while shelling continued. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 550 people were killed by Israeli strikes yesterday and this morning. There are reports of more rockets on both sides of the border. Dozens of flights in and out of Beirut's airport are canceled. As Alison Northcott reports, Lebanese Canadians are watching closely and worrying about loved ones.
Being a Lebanese expat right now is like being on survival mode.
Sitting outside her apartment building in Montreal, Nassam Sharara says the last weeks have become increasingly stressful. She's a Canadian citizen who grew up in Lebanon and moved here 4 years ago to study.
We're scared to go to sleep at night because we're afraid that we might wake up to news that family members died or your house in your hometown has been exploded. Hi, Marwan.
Hello.
Sharara has been calling friends and family members in Lebanon to check in on them, including her parents who have evacuated their home and are staying in Beirut.
Everyone's trying their best to keep some sort of stability, but also be safe as much as possible.
The Canadian government is warning Canadians in Lebanon to leave and to avoid traveling to the area as the conflict between Israel and the militant group Hezbollah has intensified.
Foreign
Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly reiterated that warning Monday.
Les vols commerciaux pourraient devenir très rares.
Saying commercial flights could become rare or even stop altogether. Sharara says so far her parents don't have plans to leave.
No one is prepared to leave just yet up until we see what's going to happen in the next couple of days or in the next couple of weeks.
She says leaving Lebanon for them would be a major disruption. So for now, they will live with the risk and hope things don't escalate even more. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
The Middle East is expected to feature prominently in Joe Biden's speech to the United Nations General Assembly. The outgoing U.S. president will begin his farewell on the world stage this morning. The CBC's Chris Reyes is covering the General Assembly and joins us with more. And Chris, what can we expect from Biden's address?
President Biden's administration laid out 3 priorities ahead of the high-level week at the UN General Assembly. 1, addressing threats to peace and security. 2, providing better humanitarian aid to those affected by war, hunger, and climate change. And then finally, reforming the UN, and that includes expanding the Security Council. So expect those highlights to run through President Biden's speech today. President Biden will likely talk about the importance of tackling those priorities given the escalating tensions in the Middle East, the ongoing war in Ukraine, and the other challenges that require international cooperation. Biden has always been a stalwart supporter of the United Nations. He has often used these speeches on the global stage to take ownership of the U.S. role in championing multilateralism. Given that this is his final address to the UN General Assembly as President of the United States, he'll likely call on his fellow leaders to continue to fight for UN values.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in New York. The UN meeting means Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will not be in the House of Commons today, even as parliamentarians debate a motion to bring down his government. But Trudeau cannot escape the confidence motion in New York, not even when he appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Your party is 17 points behind in the polls, and this week your rivals are calling a vote to possibly force you out of office. Give the devil his due. What's their rationale?
Well, that it's a really tough time in Canada right now. People are hurting. People are having trouble paying for groceries, paying for rent, filling up the tank.
The Conservatives are tabling today's motion. It simply says the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Time to go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what will you be watching for this morning?
Marcia, Pierre Poilievre and his team will rise to speak today, knowing they're already thwarted. But the drama here may be the point. It keeps their base pumped up, the fundraising flowing. For the Bloc Québécois, this fall is their moment to be big players again, an opportunity to seek concessions from the Liberals to suit the Bloc's agenda. So what does a win look like? How long will Blanchet play this game? And we'll see whether New Democrats in their remarks today mention that a legacy of the now dead Supply and Confidence Agreement, the pharmacare legislation, is before a Senate committee for review this week, and perhaps almost to a place where healthcare advocates no longer have to apply pressure to prevent this parliament from dissolving without it becoming law. The NDP leader continued to be heckled and harassed by Conservatives yesterday in the House as he tried to put tough questions to this government. Health Minister Mark Holland reminded Jagmeet Singh that all this was his call.
If the NDP can't stand up to the Conservative leader, then how are they going to stand up for Canadians?
There will be a second vote tomorrow that could be also considered a confidence measure. What can you tell us about that?
Well, in mid-August, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland adjusted the capital gains tax exemptions to address some concerns by farmers, entrepreneurs, others, that last spring's change to the inclusion rate unfairly lumped their businesses in with the wealthy Canadians that the Liberal government had intended to target. This change will require the passage of a new Ways and Means motion this week. That is a budget measure, a so-called money vote, that at least one opposition party is going to need to support. So we'll watch to see who that is.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa to Mexico. Hurricane John is bringing high winds and heavy rain to the southern Pacific coast. It made landfall late Monday. Winds reached nearly 200 kilometers an hour. People were warned it could cause life-threatening flash floods and mudslides. John has since eased to become a Category 2 storm. Forecasters say the storm could persist until Thursday. Nunavut could soon be getting its first road link, connecting it to southern Canada. It would be part of a project connecting mineral mining to international shipping routes. The project also involves building a deepwater port in the high Arctic. The CBC's Mahanur Mubarak reports that it could also help lower the cost of living and be used to improve Arctic security.
A massive development project is being proposed for Canada's Central Arctic. If built, it would create a new deep water port for the mining industry and roads linking the area to the south. The corporation behind the proposal, West Kitikmeot Resources, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nunavut government. The new harbor in Grays Bay will be available to mining companies to transport minerals like copper and zinc. The Canadian Navy would also have access to the facility to refuel its ships patrolling northern seas. Former Nunavut Senator Dennis Patterson has advocated for the project for more than a decade.
Our not-so-friendly neighbor, Russia, on the other side of the pole, are bristling with ports, airfields, and military bases. So this project has many benefits.
Among them, making food more available and accessible at a lower cost to northern residents, since West Kitikmeot Resources is proposing to construct 2 new land routes into the high Arctic. Wayne Gregory is the mayor of Cambridge Bay.
Because there are no roads going to the south, there's the extra added cost on everything right across the board for just the cost of living and anything that's being imported.
The project is still undergoing a permitting process. West Kitikmeot Resources hopes an environmental assessment will be complete in 2027, with hopes to start construction in 2030. Mahanur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
If you have youngsters in your house, you probably know all about the LOL Surprise Dolls, but before them, there was a teen pop group called the OMG Girls.
Holla back if you hear me, hear me, hear me. I didn't come out to hang with just my girls tonight.
The singers had long, brightly colored hair and a distinct sense of style. The group was founded by hip-hop star T.I. and his wife Tamika Harris. They think today's top-selling dolls look a lot like their girl group of yore. And yesterday, a jury in California agreed. It said the manufacturer of the LOL Surprise Dolls misappropriated the name, image, and likeness of the pop singers, and it ordered MGA Entertainment to pay $95 million in damages. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
$95 million in damages. No one is saying LOL about that one. Good morning, everybody. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. It's going to be nice today. Sunshine, 21 degrees. In a moment, we'll check in with Abby Adiemi for a deeper look at our forecast. This hour on the program, speaking of parenting, we're going to talk about something called gentle parenting, exploring what it means, why it works, where it might not, and whether or not you've been getting on board with this trend right now. So stay tuned for that. Also, how Harvest Manitoba here in our province is expanding their scope and helping to make sure that more kids attend school in the process. So we're going to hear more about that as well. And at 10 to 7, a further discussion about politics. You just heard the Prime Minister last night on American National Talk Show. We're going to talk more about the serious stuff, the non-confidence vote in the House of Commons this week, so stay tuned. Right now, Heather Wells is back, and she's here with our headlines. Hi there.
Hi. Well, displaced Birchwood Terrace tenants want to know why the owner of the apartment building isn't footing the bill for their housing. The province has been paying for hotel room for dozens of people forced from that St. James building since June. The tenants were forced to leave in May when the building was found structurally unsafe. Joyce Hilborn lived there for more than 30 years. She wants the property owner, Ladco, to be held accountable. She says Ladco needs to take responsibility for neglecting its building. So we'll hear more about that. As well, the head of the Heritage Winnipeg says she is angry after pieces of the city's history have been reduced to rubble. Cindy Tugwell says the city did not contact her organization about old building fragments at Air Canada Window Park that were demolished as part of the park's redevelopment. We'll hear more in our next news at 6:30.
Belated happy birthday, Heather Wells.
Oh, thank you.
Yay, welcome back.
Thanks. You just outed me.
I know. I'm not going to out you any more than that. Beautiful right now. Hey, always around your birthday time of year. Anybody with birthdays in the fall, trees are starting to change color. We were talking about all that loveliness. Did you enjoy your weekend?
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was a little bit cloudy, but I mean the sun's back today.
Yeah, it should be. To that end, Abby, how you doing this morning?
Good morning. How you doing today?
Very well, my friend. And what do we know about the sun?
Yes, we're expecting mostly sunny skies with temperatures ranging from cool in the northern regions to warm in the down south here. Currently, Winnipeg 13. We're seeing cloudy start, though we should see some warm temperatures. A later sunny day ahead. We will warm up to a high of 21. Breezy and light this afternoon, and then we'll see clear skies and we'll cool off to 11. Another sunny day in the forecast for tomorrow. Across the regions, similar conditions except for Thompson, which is foggy at this time, and cloudy in Churchill, both hovering near 5 and 6 degrees. And down south, just partly cloudy. And we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds for most of the regions, aiming for highs around 23, 24. That's what we will see. So we are going to see warm and sunny day today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, reminder about the commute?
Yeah, really quiet commute overall. So far, haven't heard of any major issues. But if you're walking, biking, driving, you see some going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start with a parenting interview, shall we? Raising kids can sometimes feel like a guessing game. There's certainly no lack of advice floating around out there, both in person and online. Now, one method that is currently getting some headlines is called gentle parenting. Now, it might work for some people. Others wonder, though, if parents are left feeling roughed up by the experience. To talk about it, Bear Bergman starts the show today. He's the author of Special Topics and Being a Parent, a Queer and Tender Guide to Things I've Learned About Parenting, Mostly the Hard Way. Good morning.
Good morning.
What does gentle parenting mean?
I mean, I think gentle parenting is a collection of concepts that all point at the same thing, right? The idea that the work of parenting includes connecting children to their feelings and also helping them connect their actions to outcomes. That's probably the most useful definition of gentle parenting's goals that I could produce.
And when interacting with children in that way, how do parents define success, and why would someone want to do it?
Well, I think a lot of us were parented during a time when obedience-based parenting was the norm. You know, you do what I tell you or there's trouble. Lots less of tell me about your feelings and more I'll give you something to cry about. And I think that people who were parented that way sometimes feel like they didn't like it. They now have their own children and they would like to be doing something different. And I think that people are successful when parenting becomes more collaborative and when communication between parents and children is robust and people feel heard.
Some folks might wonder what happens if you're doing that and they're, adopting that style and it's working, but then there is a moment where you need to sort of say, no, I'm the parent. There are lines here. This is not a negotiation. You need to do this because I'm telling you to do this. How do you weave that into this style?
I think that setting boundaries and saying no sometimes are important parts of parenting. I think sometimes gentle parenting gets a bit of a bad rap because we see these sort of parody representations of it almost where, a kid is losing their stuff and the parent sort of gets down on one knee and gazes meaningfully into their eyes and tries to, right? Like, you've seen this thing. But sometimes the answer is that you say, hey, you can feel frustrated. You can feel frustrated and stomp your feet, but you cannot kick your sister. Now she feels bad and I feel bad and you don't feel any better. Right? That is also gentle parenting. It doesn't have to sound like, a satire of someone who's never spent 10 seconds with a kid. What we're doing is we're naming, oh, you feel frustrated. And we're saying, here's something else you could do that might have a better outcome, while also drawing a clear boundary. Hey, no one kicks you. You don't kick anyone. That is the rule of the house.
Do you think that one of the challenges is when you have parents that haven't been parented in that way, as you outlined at the beginning, that they may not be equipped to be able to give that to the next generation, because in some ways they don't know what to do with their own frustration sometimes, right?
Absolutely. What I would say is I think everyone is equipped. I just think that many of us don't have the practice. And for sure, it can feel awkward at first and take longer at first. But you do get the dividends later, right? When things become more cooperative as kids get older and really understand what is going on, then you don't have to spend every minute issuing instructions constantly. They already know not only what to do, but also why to do it.
Obviously, parenting, especially in the morning, when we're talking morning right now, right? When folks have to go to work and kids have to get to school, it's stressful, right? And everyone can lose their temper time to time. How can parents keep the best of intentions of gentle parenting in mind when things are particularly stressful?
Yeah, mornings are hard. Transitions are hard. Anytime you need to get anyone to stop doing one thing and start doing the next thing, it can be a challenge. And, getting kids out the door to school is so tough. I think for me, the most important thing to remember is there's a difference between yelling at someone and belittling them or trying to make them feel bad. We all lose our tempers. It's one thing to say, put your shoes on this minute. It is a different thing to say, why are you so foolish that you can never remember your shoes, right? Making a kid feel bad in order to teach them something doesn't work. You only ever get the first half, right? You get the feel bad, but you don't really get the learning. Almost nobody can learn when they already feel bad anyway, and children double can't.
We appreciate having you on this morning, Bear. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bear Bergman, starting our day off with some advice if you're starting your day off with your kids in your home. Bear's the author of Special Topics in Being a Parent, a Queer and Tender Guide to Things I've Learned About Parenting, Mostly the Hard Way. We reached him in Regina.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Well, I want to just say a special good morning to everyone who wrote to us yesterday. There were some 76 comments by the end of the day. We had calls, we had people DMing us, and it was all prompted from a simple question about where you build your community, how you identify your community, and where you find it. And I'm going to share more of those. We're going to share more of those comments this morning on the program. But thank you all so much for engaging with us. It was really lovely to hear all of your comments. Made me feel really good about Manitoba. Mostly cloudy in Winnipeg this morning. It's 13 degrees in the city, and as Abby mentioned earlier this hour, mainly sunny for the day and a high of 21. Well, speaking of our province, let's hear more about what happened at Harvest Manitoba yesterday when they put out their new 2023-2024 impact report. It is full of big numbers. More than 13 million pounds of food bought and donated. 50,000 people in a month, though, accessing food banks. 66,000 volunteer hours, and almost $44 million in donations, grants, and contributions. The latest report, though, is also full of stories of people who depend on Harvest Manitoba, and those whose lives as well have been changed by it. So Vince Barlett is president and CEO of Harvest. He dropped by and talked to host He dropped by CBC yesterday and spoke with Up to Speed host Faith Fundal.
What stands out for you most in this report? There's a lot of information in here, but what stands out for you?
What stands out for me is the incredible generosity of Manitobans. It takes a province to feed a province. And when you mention those big numbers, millions of pounds, millions of dollars, tens of thousands of hours of volunteer time, it really tells us that we are so blessed here in the province of Manitoba to have the generous people that we do so that we can feed a record number of people. As you mentioned, Faith, 50,000 people in an average month visiting a food bank somewhere in the province of Manitoba.
Whenever we talk, we're often talking about food banks, but we'll get to that in a moment. First, and this is something that our news desk mentioned as well, food transformation. I mean, what exactly are we talking about that? What is food transformation?
Well, when we talk about food transformation, what we're doing is talking about getting food all up and down the agri-food value chain, from our retailers to wholesalers, food processors and manufacturers, primary agriculture, straight out of the farmer's field, and diverting what is across this country, Faith, literally millions of tons of food each and every year, which doesn't make it on the kitchen tables. I'm talking about food waste. It's a huge problem that globally represents around 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So we're doing a feasibility study now in partnership with MNP and many of our stakeholders to identify the best opportunities to take some of that food, which otherwise would have been out under a field, sent to a landfill or compost heap. How can we repurpose it through food processing, freezing, bagging, dehydration, other types of food preparation that'll allow us to extend its life and let it reach more kitchen tables across Manitoba and potentially beyond as well.
And this is something that Harvest Manitoba has been doing. Talk more about how you've been working towards being more green while also providing folks with food.
Well, for us, we have a mission here, obviously, to support those that deal with poverty and deal with those struggles each and every day. But on the environmental side, it's incredibly positive, the work that we're able to do. As you mentioned off the top, millions of pounds of food being rescued every year, including over 9 million pounds of it that does come today through various grocery channels and agri-food channels. That's like taking 4,200 tons of greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere every year, like taking 750 cars off the road. So it absolutely makes a huge difference, and we hope to do more in partnership with our food partners in a new food transformation center.
You have to talk about Meals to Go because one of the things that stood out is in one of the statistics, it showed that 100% of principals who participate in Meals to Go showed that attendance rate has increased because of Meals to Go. What are we talking about here? What do you mean?
Well, Meals to Go, we're talking about our weekend meal program. It operates currently in 7 Manitoba schools, giving kids healthy meal bags on the weekends during the school year. We've continued to grow that program each and every year so that kids, even when they have a school nutrition program like lunch or breakfast, we're making sure they get fed on the weekend so they're returning to school on Mondays, ready to learn. We know principals love it, teachers love it, parents and kids. It's another one of those donor-funded programs that we talk about in this year's impact report because it just has a huge impact for thousands of kids going to schools in Winnipeg and beyond.
This report talks about how Harvest Manitoba is looking to focus on things beyond the core service of supporting food banks. Why is that? Why is that something that you think is important and is part of your strategic priority?
Well, for us, Harvest has always been about so much more than just hampers. It's been about hope. And a big part of that hope, Faith, comes from work we do through our warehouse training program. 100 individuals who use food banks who received 6-week on-the-job warehouse training here at Harvest, and now they're able to work in the private sector. That means our education programs that we operate in K-12 and in the post-secondary sector. And it also means the advocacy work we do to try and influence government policy at all levels to help people climb out of poverty and see policy solutions that are going to help people be more food insecure. So it really does, as I said off the top, take a province to feed a province. All of these projects in our annual impact report are incredibly important to the work that we do, and we can't do it without the support of Manitobans.
Just before you go, we got to talk about food banks here. What do we know about the folks who use food banks, and how has that changed in recent years?
Well, the biggest change, of course, is that the number keeps going up, and an average month, year over year, Faith, where we've seen about a 30% increase in households accessing food banks from this current fiscal year to the last one. Much the same story all over the country. Broadly based increased demand for food banks, including folks earning low wages, people on disability benefits, people on fixed incomes, seniors, families with children. Very broadly based, but they share one thing in common. They simply can't make ends meet and need to turn to food banks. And again, there's thousands of reasons why people need to do that. We try and share some of those stories in this report and others that we do throughout the year. And we just appreciate getting that story out to those so many Manitobans who support us each and every day.
Vince, appreciate the work that you and your folks do. Thank you for making time, and take good care.
Thank you, Faith.
Vince Barletta is the president and CEO of Harvest Manitoba, in conversation there on the phone, not in studio, but with Faith Flindell on Up to Speed. Well, before we get to news time here, they're talking so much about community and building that I just want to read a couple of things that came in on Facebook to us, because they both represent things that, one thing that happened over the weekend, one that's coming up, and both things that have been going on for years in Manitoba and build community. One of them is Sue Neighbor writing into us saying, the Starbuck Community Hall Fowl Supper's coming up. I love fall supper season. I don't know about you, but it's on Sunday, the 29th in Starbuck. And Val writing in to remind us that they have been doing this for 72 years. So you can reach out to Starbuck, the community just outside of Winnipeg, if you want to take a nice, beautiful fall drive. And maybe over the weekend you were up in Toulon. We also got an awesome picture. It's posted on my Facebook page if you want to check it out. Everybody in their sweatshirts, sitting on hay bales and surrounded by pumpkins. Darcy Lomer wrote into us to remind us that for the past 10 years, she says, the crew depicted had been coming together to put on Toulon's Pumpkin Fest. So it happened over the weekend, and she was just writing in about how she got started and how she builds community, and thanking the sponsors, everyone that came together, and reminding everyone that Toulon Pumpkin Fest is such an incredible event, and it has been going on for 100 years. So the team in the picture has been together for 10, but 100 years for Toulon Pumpkin Fest. So good morning if you're waking up in Starbuck or Toulon this morning. Nice to have you listening. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. And in a moment, we're going to turn our attention to the news. And then also we're going to touch base with Crystalie Ramlakan via Zoom in the next half hour of the show with our business news. Today, there's new data out that shows that fraud is on the rise in the automotive sector. So she's going to break down for us exactly what that means and what's happening right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 13 degrees. Summer's returning in September. Sunshine today, bit of a westerly breeze, and a warm 21 degrees. Evacuees from Birchwood Terrace want the property owner held accountable for their housing costs instead of the Manitoba government. It has been more than 110 days since the province started covering the daily hotel costs for displaced tenants. This after the apartment building in St. James was found structurally unsafe back in May. About 250 people were forced out. Debbie Ross lived at Birchwood Terrace for 5 years. She says the owner of the building, Ladco Company, hasn't helped them enough.
They should have been beside us all the way, okay? Basically, they have forgotten about us. But honest to God, they should be paying the price for us. It should not be the city or the province.
Ladco has declined comment. The province says it doesn't know how much it spent housing people from Birchwood Terrace since it took over paying for their housing in June. Estimates show it could be more than $1 million. A tenant who faces eviction from the Sherbrooke Inn has won a little more time. About 7 people living at that Winnipeg hotel face eviction. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
Neil Soersma bought the Sherbrooke Inn 3 months ago.
At the time, he said he had no plans to kick out anyone living in the hotel. But now he says some residents have not paid rent in months. One tenant says he had an agreement that he could stay in exchange for working in the hotel. Soersma sent a letter in July saying he would no longer accept work in exchange for rent after August 1st. But the tenant says Soersma still owed him money. The commission was set to decide the matter, but instead, Soersma agreed to let the tenant stay until the end of October. Soersma also agreed to pay $1,000 to settle outstanding wages. Soersma told reporters 2 other tenants have already left, while a third has been ordered to leave. He's still in discussions with the others who have received notices. There are currently 21 people living in the 33-room hotel. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
History buffs and heritage groups are outraged to find some of Winnipeg's past reduced to rubble. Stone and metal columns from buildings dating back to the 1800s are left in ruins after the demolition of Air Canada Window Park. The demolition is part of the city's redevelopment of that downtown park, but local historian Christian Cassidy says the demolition site includes pieces of old columns which had been installed as historical features when the park was built in 1985.
At one point, somebody obviously felt that these were important enough building fragments to save them, put them in the park. They all had interpretive plaques describing what they were, and sadly, almost 40 years later, they have no value at all.
A city spokesperson tells CBC the old columns don't hold official heritage status and could not be preserved. But Heritage Winnipeg says it should have been consulted because it would have worked with the city to have those items removed and reused. Some parents in Winnipeg's largest school division are not happy about a move to put fundraising on hold. The Winnipeg School Division is asking its schools to limit fundraising. It argues fundraising can be a barrier for families and reveal disparities between schools. Peter Reimer has children in division schools. He says officials shouldn't be dictating to parents whether they can fundraise.
If they're doing a fundraiser and I don't want my child to partake in the fundraiser, then I just don't have my child partake in the fundraiser. However, why should my decision be made for a different parent that wants to partake in it? If somebody wants their children to partake in it, let them.
Another parent argues schools are already cash-strapped and need the money from fundraising. Superintendent Matt Henderson says he wants schools to exhaust their budgets instead of fundraising. Now to Lebanon. Gridlock on the highways out of the southern part of that country as thousands of people move north, away from areas targeted by Israeli airstrikes. The strikes continue this morning, and the number of dead in Lebanon this week has now surpassed 550. At the same time, Palestinian officials say Israeli strikes in Gaza today have claimed at least 7 lives in Han Yunis. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Remote First Nations across Canada are struggling to support pregnant women in their communities. Studies show the rate of stillbirths and babies who die in the first week of life is more than 2 times higher for Indigenous communities than Canadian average. Some of the risk factors include pre-existing medical conditions, young maternal age, and reduced access to parental care, as well as good nutrition. Opaskwayak Cree Nation has hired 3 doulas for support. One is Evelyn Fisher. She says they help pregnant women with grocery shopping, cooking, and nutrition.
We find that classes are very successful and people come back because they get that sense of they're welcome, they're safe, and they can share.
Fisher says expecting mothers also do traditional activities like creating a birthing bundle. And Cole Perfetti will be suiting up for the Winnipeg Jets again after the teams come to terms on a 2-year contract with the forward. The deal is worth $3.2 million a year. The 22-year-old Perfetti scored 19 goals for the Jets last season. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather Walls.
You're welcome.
It is time now for your CBC regional forecast. Abby Adiyemi has all of those details.
Temperatures ranging from cool in the northern part of the province to warm down south. 13 in Winnipeg, mostly cloudy at this time. Today we're going to see this warm temperature and a sunny day with highs for Winnipeg reaching 21 along with light breeze. Tonight that will stay clear and we will cool off to a 11. Moving west to Brandon, 8 degrees at this time. For today, you're going to enjoy a mix of sun and clouds. That will be clearing this morning and then some breezy afternoon, high near 23. North in Thompson at this time, foggy conditions you're seeing at 5 degrees. You stay with mostly cloudy conditions today, and your highs would only get to 15. Further north in Churchill, 6 and cloudy, mainly cloudy conditions is what the forecast would have for today. We do have a good chance of morning showers becoming breezy as you approach the midday. You see highs only near 12. Dauphin is sitting at 12 degrees at this time. It's clear. You should see a mix of sun and clouds today. That would clear by the noon period, and then you enjoy some sunshine. High would warm up to 23. Gimli at 9 and cloudy. Today's forecast for the Interlake region calls for a mix of sun and clouds with sunshine breaking through this afternoon. Your high would get to 21. Steinbach is at 11 and also enjoying some clear skies at this time. It will be mainly sunny for that region, reaching a high of 21. And for Morris, it is currently cloudy. You're currently sitting at 10 degrees. For the rest of the Pembina Valley region, we should see a mix of sun and clouds to start, becoming sunny as you get towards your lunch period. Then some light breezy conditions from the west, and you will warm up to 21 and more clear skies tonight. So it's just going to be like a warm and beautiful day for most parts of the southern regions. It's going to feel like summer all again, and we'll see highs of 20s.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute.
Hot take. I kind of like it cooler.
Do you?
Yeah, you know what? When
Yeah.
I see those high temperatures, I'm like, let's just cool. I got my jeans, I got my sweater. I like to wear those outside.
I'm kind of ready for my scarves and that too.
Yeah.
But it's that I got to be careful with this because for me, it's like that medium. Like 21's not crazy, but if it gets to the 25s and 24s again, like I'm okay being done with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't say that out loud.
I know.
We're gonna regret
Uh-oh.
this in about 5 seconds.
Where do you get calls?
You're gonna take
I'm gonna
them.
get calls,
Where
exactly.
can they call you?
I'm gonna get canceled. Yeah, well, you can call me on the commuter line if you want to complain. But also, you can call me on the commuter line if you see anything going on in traffic, because there's actually not too much going on right now. Give me a call if you're walking, biking, driving. We'd love to hear from you. 204-788-3093.
Don't cancel Corey. All right, let's get to business news. Crystalie Ramlickan's here via Zoom. Hello to you.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So, new data I understand shows that fraud is on the rise in the automotive sector. What's going on?
Well, consumers are falsifying their income, employment, and financial information to secure credit. And then there's also synthetic identity fraud. So that's where criminals combine real and fake data to create new identities. And this is all being driven by ID theft and false credit applications. So automotive fraud is up by 54% year over year. And that's according to a new report from Equifax Canada. Here's Carl Davis, who is with Equifax, which is a global data company.
Usually, the fraudster is looking to take the asset. And so they could present themselves to a dealership. They will, look to set up an account, usually an account that has almost no money in it or a very small amount that might cover the first couple of payments. They will take the car. The car will then be, shipped overseas, usually. And then once the payments are stopped being made to the lender, someone is then trying to find the vehicle, but the vehicle is nowhere to be seen.
Now, of course, this is bad news for businesses, but it's also not great news for consumers because this fraud can mean increased costs in lending, such as additional fees to make up for losses and more expensive insurance. So experts say it's important for people to stay vigilant by using ID theft protection tools that can detect fraud early. So, for example, timely alerts on credit report changes.
To another story, let's move to the tech world. The stock of chip maker Intel is popping. What's going on? Why is the jump happening?
Yeah, so this is after reports of a potential multi-billion-dollar investment from Apollo Global Management. The private equity firm would invest up to $5 billion. And there have also been reports that the chipmaker is considering a takeover by another chip giant, Qualcomm. So this interest is welcome news for Intel, which has struggled to find its footing in a new AI-dominated market. So last month, the company said it was looking to cut $10 billion in costs by laying off 15% of its workforce, and it's pausing some of its projects in Europe. So for more on this story, here's Bob O'Donnell, who is the president and chief analyst at Tech Analysis Research in California.
Intel stumbled by not keeping up with its process manufacturing starting about 5 or so years ago. They also didn't keep up with its competition in terms of power efficiency of their chips versus their competition. All of those things combined created the situation where Intel finds itself, and it's going to take really a few years before the ship can be fully righted, no matter who comes in.
And the interest in Intel comes as the company tries to build some of its own momentum, too. Last week, the CEO announced an expanded multi-billion-dollar partnership with Amazon and $3 billion in funding from the U.S. government.
And why is Cineplex being fined almost $39 million?
Well, this is over its $1.50 online booking fee. So the competition tribunal has found the movie theater chain guilty of deceptive marketing practices. So Cineplex started charging the fee in June of 2022 to customers not enrolled in its loyalty and subscription programs. And the Bureau says this is drip pricing. So we've talked about this before. That's a practice where customers are drawn into a purchase without full disclosure of the final cost. So, when you're, shopping online and you're going to check out and the price is so much more expensive when you're about to give them your credit card information for some reason.
Yes, I do. And then I go back, and I try to get out of it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not paying those fees. And, recent changes to the Competition Act explicitly recognize drip pricing as a harmful business practice. Now, Cineplex denied the accusation, saying moviegoers are promptly told about the fees they may face. But this record $39 million fine is actually equivalent to the amount Cineplex collected from consumers through that booking fee between June of 2022 and December of 2023. So those $1.50s really added up.
Wow, no doubt. How are markets looking today?
In Europe, stocks are trading higher. Germany, the UK, and France are all up. In Asia, mainland China stocks saw the best day in 4 years after a slew of policy easing measures were announced from the central bank. So Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all up. Oil is up $1.83 to $72.20 US per barrel. Gold is down $2.64 to $2,626.08 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.16 of a cent to 74 cents US.
All right, Krista Lee, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Marcy.
That's our business news with Krista Lee Ramlakan on CBC. It is 6:45 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. How you doing this Tuesday morning? Our team is all remarking on how the slight chill in the air, even though it's going to be nice later, the turn to fall, the season. I don't know what it is. It's just everyone's just a little groggy today. So let's wake up together and pour some more coffee. We're on air with you till 8:37. Thanks for joining us on CBC, by the way. In Winnipeg, it will be nice today, as Abby's been saying, mainly sunny, a high of 21 degrees. If you like that. To me, that is kind of a sweet spot. When it gets a bit hotter, as I said, I kind of want the season. Well, today is also September 24th. And if today's your birthday, well, happy birthday. Maybe your colleagues will buy you coffee. Maybe someone will send you flowers. But do you want to know who'd really like to celebrate with you? Businesses. By offering you some freebies. But how free are those freebies really when you go out and about and you try to take advantage of those free things on your birthday? CBC's Danielle Nerman finds out.
Most people celebrate their birthday with friends. Not Lincoln Ho, because he's convinced he has a birthday curse.
So whenever I have a birthday and there's a party involved with cake, that place goes out of business.
I know what you're thinking. Sounds kind of superstitious. But even when Lincoln moved his birthday party from a restaurant to a friend's house,
They had like a 2-year lease on their rental property. They were evicted within 2 months. So after that, I'm like, okay, no more birthday parties.
Now Lincoln spends his birthdays alone, hoovering up as much free stuff as he can.
Free pancakes, free matcha latte, free birthday sandwich.
He takes the whole day off work and drives around Edmonton, making stops at dozens of cafes, stores, and restaurants.
Free fries, free skincare, free salt.
Lincoln runs a website called yegventures.ca. He says in every city and town across Canada, you can score free stuff just for being born. And if you're organized, you can really milk it.
I've put everything into a spreadsheet, and I looked for the ones that you can only redeem on your birthday itself. So Starbucks, you get a free birthday drink, but I go for the food items because they cost more, because I'm a little cheap like that.
Lincoln cashes in big on his birthday, almost $100 worth of free food and merch. So what do businesses get in return? Dun dun dun, the D word.
So data is the most important thing that businesses want.
Nicole Rourke teaches marketing at St. Clair College in Windsor. In order to get that birthday freebie, you usually have to download an app, sign up for a loyalty program, or join an email list.
It's actually very clever of them because, let's face it, we're all little kids at heart and we all like to feel special on our birthday. It doesn't matter if you're 16, 60, or 90, but it is an excuse for them to get in touch with you.
And keep staying in touch long after your birthday. Because you told them where you live, how old you are, and your favorite froyo flavor, that business knows your shopping preferences and whether you're a Gen Z or a boomer, which means they can target you with enticing offers.
Usually there is an incentive to click on their website, visit their store, and there's an expiry date to that. So they're giving you a call to action, generally with a sense of urgency, to really get you to buy something sooner than later. And a lot of us do fall for it, you and I included. We're suckers.
But before you get sucked in, just know some birthday freebies have strings attached. Mac, for example, only hands out gifts to customers who, in the year leading up to their birthday, spent $150 on makeup. And others are kind of lame.
So some of them have become coupons, like buy one, get ones, or you get 5% off of this. It's like, well, 5% is just like GST off, right? So I'm like, is it worth it to even sign up for this and get all of this junk mail?
Over the years, Lincoln has curated his list. He doesn't waste his time on gifts that aren't really free, and he always hits up the granddaddy of birthday swag. The free Denny's breakfast. Sometimes twice.
I figured they're probably working 8 to 12-hour shifts, so the person working in the evening will probably not know that I was there in the morning.
Now that's a grand slam. For CBC Radio, I'm Danielle Nerman.
So Danielle works for the Cost of Living on CBC. You can check out their show Sundays and Tuesdays here at 11:30, or of course find their podcast everywhere you get podcasts. We actually covered a story of a Winnipegger a couple of years ago, Erin Murray, who also did the same thing. She would make it a point on her birthday to go out and about in Winnipeg and get the free stuff. And she did a little bit of an estimation of how much she figured she got for free on her past birthdays, and it came to $80 worth of free food and other items on her special day.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Crossing the 8 now. We are just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
Well, this week, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre likely will do exactly what he's been promising to do for weeks now. It's expected Poilievre's going to table a non-confidence vote for a debate in the House of Commons. But the leaders of the NDP and the Bloc have already said they will not vote to bring down the Liberal government, at least not this time around. If it all plays out as predicted, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's at the UN this week, as you've been hearing, won't have to pivot into election mode. To talk about it all, Ryan Tumulty's here, parliamentary reporter with the National Post. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I hope I left you stuff to talk about. That was a big introduction I gave you. But let's start with the non-confidence vote we're expecting on Wednesday. The leader of the Bloc, Yves-François Blanchet, says he will not support the non-confidence vote. What, if anything, might the Bloc expect from the Liberal government in exchange for their support?
Yeah, so certainly so far the Liberals have not indicated that they are giving the Bloc anything specifically, though they are open to talking. But the Bloc are looking for a couple of things. They're looking for more control over Quebec's sort of immigration. Some of the asylum seekers, for example, Quebec doesn't have direct control over that, and they would like to. And certainly the other thing they're looking for is changes to the way old age security is paid out. Right now, people who are over 75 get a boost in their old age security payments of about 10%. The Bloc have a bill that would boost those payments for all seniors, anyone over 65. And so that is something that they've pushed for. That is something I think they would like the Liberals to support them on because, they have this bill, but it can't pass without the government's support. So, I think that's on the table. Like I said, the Liberals have not agreed to that yet, but perhaps later in the session they might.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh ended his party's formal support, as we all know, for the Liberals. So that happened weeks ago. What do you think he's hoping to gain by, not supporting the non-confidence vote?
Yeah, I mean, one thing certainly is the pharmacare legislation. It's still in the Senate. It hasn't passed the Senate. If it doesn't get through the Senate, the government can't start setting up deals with provinces, and it can't get to a place where those free medications are available. So certainly that's one thing. I think for both the NDP and the Bloc, actually, though, part of why they're delaying is electoral reasons. Right now we're looking at a big Conservative majority government. Certainly the NDP and the Bloc would do okay in a future election, but I don't think they'd have any kind of bargaining power with a Conservative majority. And I think they're taking advantage of the position they're in right now for as long as they can. I don't think they're eager to see a Conservative majority government. And so, they're sort of waiting for time right now.
I actually want to take us right to a piece of audio here and switch gears completely. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night. A lot of people talking about it. I just want to play a part of this here.
What do I call you? What do people call the Prime Minister?
Really depends on them. I'm calling you Stephen, so you can call me Justin, I guess.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Then you can
Mr. Prime Minister, is that basically it? That's the formal way of doing it?
Prime Minister, yeah.
Prime Minister,
Yeah.
Prime Minister, Prime Minister.
Well, no, because Mr. is an American thing, Mr. President, right? But
Yes.
Prime Minister is apparently like doctor, so you don't actually have to say Mr. Prime Minister.
So you wouldn't say Mr. Doctor?
No, you might, but we don't.
That's a new CBS show, Mr. Doctor, Lawyer. Let's get into the heat of the meat here. We here in the United States, we love your Canadian musicians, your Canadian comedians. We love your Ryans, both Gosling and Reynolds. But I don't know everything I should know about Canada. Imagine I come from a country that thinks mostly about itself, and I hear really good things about Canada. Sell me.
Canada's the best country in the world.
So if people want to hear more of what the Prime Minister said on Colbert last night, we'll play it on World Report. I know there's clips all over the place this morning. What did you make of his appearance?
I think certainly it's an opportunity to hit a big audience. He wasn't really talking to Americans there. He wasn't making some sort of pitch against some, trade dispute or anything like that. I think he was taking advantage of the big Canadian audience that show has. And certainly you hear from Liberals sometimes that there is a frustration that the government isn't finding ways to tell its story better, that isn't drawing contrasts with Pierre Poilievre more aggressively. There have been no Liberal paid attack ads against Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre has put out ads, not only criticizing the Prime Minister, but introducing himself. And certainly a lot of that has to do with the Conservatives' fundraising advantage. But I think this was an opportunity for the Liberals to, get a big audience in front of Canadians. Perhaps, Canadians who don't watch the news might have seen that. And, hopefully, from the Liberals' perspective, hopefully starts to change some minds and maybe move some polling numbers.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Ryan Tumulty, parliamentary reporter with the National Post. Now, of course, to serious matters, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as mentioned, is at the UN this week. We're going to hear more about what stood out from those meetings yesterday, coming up on World Report at 7. Right now, it is coming up to 3 minutes to 7 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or YouTube. And with your CBC News headlines from our news center this morning live, here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, displaced Birchwood Terrace tenants want to know why the owner of the apartment building isn't footing the bill for their housing. The province has been paying for hotel rooms for dozens of people forced from the St. James building since June. The tenants had to leave back in May when that building was found structurally unsafe. We're going to hear from one woman who's lived there for 30 years. She says Latco Company, the owner, needs to be held accountable. And remote First Nations across Canada are struggling to support pregnant women in their communities. Now, Opaskwayak Cree Nation has hired 3 doulas for support. We're going to hear what they're doing in the community in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
13 degrees right now in Winnipeg. Winds are calm. Our high today, 21 with tons of sunshine. That'll be nice in the morning commute. So far, so good, so early. If you need to reach us, 788-3093. Well, the next hour of the show, we're going to build on some of the stories Heather mentioned there. We will hear more from tenants, displaced tenants at Birchwood Terrace. In addition, we're going to hear how a kicker for the University of Manitoba Bisons has become an icon for other women looking to break down gender barrier in sport. Yesterday, we were talking about Maya Turner, and today we're going to hear a little bit more about how she's been inspiring others. So that's the next hour. Plus, at 10 to 8 this morning, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet of sorts for the Bears in Whiteshell Provincial Park, thanks to some easily opened garbage bins that are supposed to be bear-proof. We're going to hear more about what's been happening there. I'm Marcy Marcus. Stay with us. World Report's coming up next on CBC.
Today on The Current.
The very first time I remember being very afraid. I thought it was some kind of legal activity. I thought that my life may be at risk.
Thousands of Canadians and Americans make their living doing drug trials. Many of them are poor or marginalized. A new documentary reveals the risks faced by the people doing this unknown part of drug testing, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Lebanon's health minister now says more than 550 people were killed by Israeli airstrikes yesterday.
بالحصيلة المحدثة لوزارة الصحة للاعتداءات اللي صارت.
He also says 50 of the victims were children, 94 were women. This morning, Hezbollah and Israel are exchanging rocket fire again. Dozens of flights in and out of Beirut have been canceled, and the United States says it is deploying more troops to the Middle East. Crystal Gumansing is following developments from London.
Illuminating flashes lit up the sky over northern Israel before sunrise. The country's air defense system intercepting incoming rockets.
We need to continue asking for these
immediate ceasefire across the blue line.
Joseph Borrell, Europe's top diplomat, one of many leaders urging de-escalation. He is calling on all parties to work towards peace.
What's happening in Gaza is triggering other war scenarios in Lebanon, in the Red Sea, and unhappily, and we don't talk enough about it, on the West Bank.
As tensions in the region ratchet up, additional U.S. troops are being deployed to the Middle East. Air Force Major General Patrick Ryder, a Pentagon spokesperson, declined to provide any additional details, saying only the move is out of an abundance of caution. Israel says yesterday's strikes were preemptive to protect its citizens. It says it hit more than 1,000 sites concealing heavy and long-range weapons. Sites Israel's military spokesperson Daniel Hagari says proves Lebanese citizens are being used as shields.
We exposed this strategy.
Thousands of Lebanese from the south are now sheltering in the capital. Israel's prime minister says when IDF operations are over, they will be able to return to their homes. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
As Canada considers its response to the conflicts in the Middle East, Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee is getting ready to resume a contentious debate whether Canada should recognize a Palestinian state, and if so, how best to do that. Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
We, as Canada, have decided there's no possibility of a negotiated outcome.
Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly says the Israeli government is against a two-state solution and the creation of a Palestinian state, and Hamas refuses to release hostages and lay down its arms, all of it creating an impasse.
We reserve the right to make sure that we can recognize the Palestinian state at the right time.
Sources have told CBC News Liberal MPs have put forward a motion that would study the quickest path for the Canadian government to recognize Palestinian statehood at a Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee. They got approval from Bloc Québécois and NDP MPs, but were blocked from putting it to a vote by Conservative members at a closed-door session of the committee last week. And debate is expected to resume this morning.
This is an ill-advised course to follow.
Shimon Fogel is with the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, a Canadian Jewish advocacy group. He says state recognition would amount to rewarding Hamas for its deadly attack on Israel last October and taking more than 200 people as hostages.
It is more about politics and political theater.
Stephen Brown disagrees. He's with the National Council of Canadian Muslims.
If we believe as Canadians that the best way to achieve peace in the Middle East is through a two-state solution, well then what we should be doing is prioritizing peace.
Today's committee meeting could be held in public if the recognition motion is put to a vote. Rafi Boudjikanian on CBC News, Ottawa.
Brazil's president will open the United Nations General Assembly today. He's expected to call on the world to do more to combat climate change. In Brazil's Amazon, 38,000 fires happened last month. That is the most for any August since 2010, according to data from the country's Space Institute. But President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been facing criticism of his administration's environmental stewardship. September is also on track to set a record for wildfires in the Brazilian Amazon. Hurricane John is bringing high winds and heavy rain to Mexico's southern Pacific coast. It made landfall late Monday. Winds reached nearly 200 kilometers an hour. John has since eased to become a Category 2 storm. Forecasters say the storm could persist until Thursday. Opening arguments are expected to begin this morning in the sexual assault trial of Canadian musician Jacob Hogard. The former frontman of the band Headley pleaded not guilty yesterday. A jury has been selected to hear the case in the northeastern Ontario town of Haileybury. Hogard is charged in connection with an alleged assault in June 2016 in nearby Kirkland Lake. CSIS representatives are scheduled to appear at the inquiry looking into foreign interference this week, and a social media app is on the agenda. CSIS has already warned Canadians could be vulnerable through TikTok, and despite a federal ban, one party is back on the app. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
Staff members met with cybersecurity experts.
The NDP's national director, Lucy Watson, says her party started using TikTok again this spring.
3/4 of Canadian voters under 25 are on the social media platform, but most parties and politicians got off it after the federal government banned the app on all its devices a year and a half ago.
The party's TikTok account resides on a cell phone that is not used for any other purpose and is stationary with all of the location features disabled.
Later this week, top officials with Canada's spy agency will testify before the foreign interference inquiry. One of the documents made public through the commission is a top-secret briefing note from CSIS. It warns TikTok could be exploited by the Chinese government. CSIS says the app collects a wide range of user data, has censored democratic values, and failed to remove disinformation about U.S. elections.
There's clearly some concerns around TikTok.
Mike Crace, executive director of the Conservatives, says his party doesn't have a TikTok account, but it doesn't stop its candidates from using the app.
I haven't seen anything that says specifically no TikTok, but I do not believe any of our candidates have TikTok.
The Liberal Party also doesn't ban the app outright. Some of its members use it on their personal phones, including to post about politics. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Nunavut could soon be getting its first road link connecting it to southern Canada. It would be part of a project connecting mineral mining to international shipping routes. The project also involves building a deep-water port in the high Arctic. As the CBC's Mahanur Mubarak reports, it could also help lower the cost of living and be used to improve Arctic security.
A massive development project is being proposed for Canada's Central Arctic. If built, it would create a new deep water port for the mining industry and roads linking the area to the south. The corporation behind the proposal, West Kitikmeot Resources, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nunavut government. The new harbour in Grays Bay will be available to mining companies to transport minerals like copper and zinc. The Canadian Navy would also have access to the facility to refuel its ships patrolling northern seas. Former Nunavut Senator Dennis Patterson has advocated for the project for more than a decade.
Our not-so-friendly neighbor, Russia, on the other side of the pole, are bristling with ports, airfields, and military bases. So this project has many benefits.
Among them, making food more available and accessible at a lower cost to northern residents, since West Kitikmeot Resources is proposing to construct 2 new land routes into the high Arctic. Wayne Gregory is the mayor of Cambridge Bay.
Because there are no roads going to the south, there's the extra added cost on everything right across the board for just the cost of living and anything that's being imported.
The project is still undergoing a permitting process. West Kitikmeot Resources hopes an environmental assessment will be complete in 2027, with hopes to start construction in 2030. Mahanur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The issue of Arctic sovereignty came up last night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, kind of. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was a guest.
We go coast to coast to coast. We have the Arctic
Oh, you have the
Ocean
Arctic,
as well.
that's right. Yeah, we're going toe-to-toe with the Ruskies over all the resources up there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge there. But
That is,
Canada,
you
you've got me
just called
totally
Vladimir
off
Putin
my...
a bit of a challenge. That is a Canadian understatement if I've ever heard it, sir.
Trudeau did not get further into the details of the Canada-Russia relations. Instead, he promoted his plans for $10 a day daycare, dental care, and farmer care. He was also asked to clarify the record on which is his favorite Star Wars film. Trudeau says it's The Empire Strikes Back. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. How you doing this Tuesday? Thanks for making some time for us to start your day. School day number 4. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio on 89.3 FM. You might also be on the app or YouTube this morning, wherever you're joining us. Thanks for being with us. We'll give you the details on what's going to be a nice day in our community coming up. This hour on the show, 2 displaced tenants from Birchwood Terrace describe how it feels to stay in a hotel for months without knowing when they can return home. So we'll have an update on that story. In addition, this hour at about 10 to 8, some residents are concerned about seeing bears feasting on garbage in Whiteshell Provincial Park. Now, that's thanks to easily accessible garbage bins. We're going to hear more about what's been going on. There's been some pictures that have been sent to CBC as well. So if you're watching us on YouTube this morning, you'll be able to check some of that out. Stay with us. In a moment, your headlines. And Heather Wells is here with those. Hi there.
Hi. Well, some parents in Winnipeg's largest school division are not happy. They've been asked to put fundraising on hold. The Winnipeg School Division is asking its schools to limit fundraising. It argues fundraising can be a barrier for families and can reveal disparities between schools. Peter Reimer has children in Winnipeg School Division schools. He says officials shouldn't be dictating to parents whether they can fundraise. Another parent argues schools are already cash-strapped and need the money from fundraising. The head of Heritage Winnipeg says she's angry after pieces of the city's history have been reduced to rubble. Cindy Tugwell says the city did not contact her organization about old building fragments at Air Canada Window Park that were demolished as part of the park's redevelopment. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Now it's time for that glorious forecast. Mr. Avi Adiami.
We're looking at temperatures cool in the northern part of the province to warm and lots of sunshine in most areas down south. We're going to see highs ranging from 21 all the way to the mid-20s. Currently, Winnipeg still stuck at 13. We're going to expect this summer-like weather to stay with us for most of the day. Today, we're anticipating a warm and sunny day. Light breezy conditions from the west as our temperatures will be climbing to a high of 21. And for tonight, the skies will remain clear, cooling down to 11. In other regions, we're seeing misty conditions in Thompson, and it is still cloudy in Churchill, along with morning showers, and temperatures for those areas around 6 degrees now. Down south, it's mostly cloudy, but then we will see mainly sunny conditions with highs around 23. In Winnipeg, we're just in for this warm and beautiful sunny day. I'll tell you, it's going to feel like summer again today with temperatures getting to that mid-20s.
It's nice to see Kevin's map up on YouTube, right? Full of green instead of all those red warning spots and systems moving in and out. All right, let's get into the morning commute, which is, I think, also cooperating, Corey?
Yeah, so far cooperating. I did get a call from Catherine who said just reminding folks that there's still construction on the St. Vital Bridge, but now it's kind of switched sides. So I tried to look online to see like how it switched sides, but it's just different now.
It walked across the road.
It walked exactly.
But
you're funny.
Thank you.
That's really the only thing that I've heard so far on the commuter line. Otherwise, things do seem to be cooperating. The number to call if you do see something else going on out there, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's begin with hearing more about Birchwood Terrace and what is happening there now. The provincial government has been paying the hotel cost for displaced tenants of Birchwood Terrace since May. Now, that is when the apartment building in Winnipeg was found structurally unsafe. Some tenants living at a hotel question why the province is footing the bill instead of the company that owns the building. Debbie Ross and Joyce Hilborn are among the 250 displaced residents. Then they're staying in the hotel that is near the airport. Now, Debbie and Joyce spoke at the CBC's Kristen Annable about their experiences, and the first person you're going to hear in this conversation is Debbie.
How it's been living here, totally different. Not a normal life. The staff is fabulous. Area's not good at all.
And Joyce, do you want to tell me what it's been like living here?
Well, first of all, it's very upsetting. I mean, we didn't choose to live here. We've had a lot of ups and downs. It's been very emotional for a lot of us, being relocated and kind of being bullied and pushed to the point where they wanted us to find other accommodation that wasn't up to our normal living accommodation. And yeah, it's like Debbie said, you know, the staff is very good. but transients coming in the area that we're living in has been very, very upsetting. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but we're here because we're here, and we're basically wanting to go back to Birchwood, and we were told that we could go back, but we don't know when, and we're sticking it out. We can't afford to go back and forth finding something else and then moving back to Birchwood. Most of us are on fixed incomes, and I intend to stick to my budget. I don't intend to go into debt because of somebody else's negligence.
And yeah, describe more about why you're staying here and waiting it out, Joyce.
Why I am staying here is because we were put here, not of our choice. And yeah, we're here for the duration until we do move back. And Wad Canoe did state that he would, support us during this time of duration before moving back. And we're hoping he keeps his word.
How do you feel that the province is paying for this?
Well, the province is paying for this out of the taxpayers' money, really. And, it's not fair, I guess, but I, being a taxpayer for a number of years, I guess I feel I'm owed it, right?
Debbie, how do you feel about, the government paying for this?
You know what? If it wasn't for the government paying for it, I don't know what we would do. Seriously. We were only on Red Cross for a short time. We were getting $65 a day. And then all of a sudden we got moved over to the city, and they cut it in half and gave us $34. And then all of a sudden, July 1st, when Rob Canoe stated that he would look after us, we would not be on the street, we got cut off the $34 and we were put into here. And you know what? We're spending the same thing as we did when we were out there. We're not actually saving. We're not saving our rent every month staying in here. We still have to buy essentials. We still have to live. And if people think that we are having a good time in here, you've got to give your head a shake. I'm not milking the system. I just cannot afford to go and move my stuff out, move into somewhere else, and then decide to move back on what I make.
So displaced tenants there, Debbie Ross and Joyce Hilborn, speaking with CBC's Kristen Annable. If you want to read more about what's happening with the ongoing challenges with the folks that have been displaced from their Birchwood Terrace homes since May, you can read more about it at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Poplar River First Nation, let's get to know each other a little bit better. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to your community September 23rd to 27th. I can't wait to meet you and discover the incredible stories that make Poplar River unique. CBC's Communities in Focus, September 23rd to 27th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
7:20 a.m. on your Tuesday morning. Traffic, your morning commute cooperating so far. Call us if you need, 788-3093. Weather-wise, it's 13 in Winnipeg. It's mostly cloudy in Brandon, and it's 8 degrees. And it's misty now up in Thompson. That has followed some early morning fog there, and it's 6 degrees up in Thompson. Winnipeg today, a high 21, lots of sunshine. And next on the show, music from Alison Russell, who first shared her song called Persephone 3 years ago. And now it's been announced that the Juno Award-winning songwriter is going to be playing the role of Persephone on Broadway in the Tony Award-winning show Hadestown. Now, for those of you not up in your Greek mythology, Persephone is the goddess of the dead and the queen of the underworld. And here's how Alison Russell has her musical take on the wife of Hades.
Blood on my shirt, 2 red buttons, might have killed me that time. Oh, if I'd let him, he's slow and he's drunk and he lost his grip on me. Now I'm running down La Rue Saint-Paul, trying to get out from the weight of it all. Can't flag a cop, cause I know he won't stop. I go see Persephone. Tap, tap, tapping on your window screen. Gotta let me in, Persephone. Got nowhere to go, but I had to get away from here. My petals are bruised, and I'm still a flower. Come running to you in the violet out. Put your skinny arms around me, let me taste your skin. Mouth to mouth, mouth to flower, salty sweet, you give me power. I feel you shake under my lips, your fingers tender, find my secrets. Don't make a sound, don't cry out loud. Your parents are sleeping just above. I kiss you once, I kiss you twice, fall asleep looking in each other's eyes. Tap, tap, tapping on your window screen. Gotta let me in, Persephone. Got nowhere to go, but I had to get away from here. My petals are bruised, but I'm still a flower. Come running to you in the violet hour. Put your skinny arms around me, let me taste your skin. Light on your shoulder, light on your cheek, light telling me it's time to leave. The birds are calling to the morning, your parents' feet above us stirring. Kiss your belly before I go, climb back out of your basement window, back to the cold spot, back to the hard light, back to the harsh bright street. Tap, tap, tapping on your window screen. Gotta let me in, Persephone. Got nowhere to go, but I had to get away from him. My petals are bruised, but I'm still a flower. Come running to you in the violet hour. Put your skinny arms around me, let me taste your skin. My petals are bruised, but I'm still a flower. Come running to you in the violet hour. Put your skinny arms around me, let me taste your skin.
I thought that was going to sound a lot darker, given that she's singing about the goddess of the dead. That's Alison Russell and Persephone. She's going to be playing that role in Hadestown on Broadway. Her first night is November 12th. It's 7:25 a.m. on 89.3. It's time for morning sports on CBC. And Scott Rickere joins us. Hi, Scott.
Hello there, Marcy.
So the Jets, let's talk about them. They're continuing preparations for tomorrow's preseason game against Edmonton. But really the big news came away from the ice, right?
For sure. The team announced last night, Marcy, that Cole Perfetti has been signed to a new 2-year contract. The young centerman had been absent from camp as negotiations on a new deal were ongoing. So this will see Cole paid just over $3 million a season for the next 2 years. This is a bridge deal. The idea being that a young player signs a shorter-term deal that sees a bit of a pay bump from their rookie contract before presumably signing a much more lucrative contract afterwards. Perfetti, in his second full season with the team, set career highs in goals and points last year, although he dressed for just one playoff game under Rick Bowness. Winnipeg, possibly with Perfetti in the lineup, back in action tomorrow at home to Edmonton.
What else is making headlines around the league?
Well, corporately speaking, the big news yesterday, Marcy, was made by Amazon Prime. It has reached an agreement with Rogers that's going to see the streaming service air games Monday nights for the next 2 seasons in Canada, with the legend Mark Messier featuring prominently. On Thursdays, CBC's Olympic host Andy Petrillo is going to host something called a whip-around show on Prime, with live look-ins at games, highlights, and interviews. So this is all part of the NHL's or Gary Bettman's desire to attract younger audiences. Meantime, Marcy, a classy gesture by one of the league's old dogs yesterday. Flyers coach John Tortorella invited Guy Gaudreau to help run things at practice. Gaudreau is the father of the late NHL star Johnny and his brother Matthew, who were killed last month by an alleged drunk driver. Here's Tortorella.
I called him and I wanted to know if he wanted to come out. He was hesitant at first, and we kind of let him go at his timetable. We're going to check in next week and see if we can get him out here a couple more times and have him be part of it. I don't want it to just to be come out here. I want him to be part of it. I think it'll be therapeutic for him to be around us and run some drills, and he's done it before. He's a coach. It was great to have him here, and we'll see where it goes.
Tortorella says he'd never met Gaudreau, a former coach who raised his family nearby, before this practice. And Tortorella joked, Marcy, that Gaudreau was giving him a hard time for yelling at his players for not skating hard enough yesterday, which sounds a bit like John Tortorella.
It does, just a little, right?
Yeah.
Let's move to football. The CFL teams are going to have a bit of a different look in this week's games.
Yeah, they're going to. The league's 9 clubs are going to wear Indigenous-designed logos to commemorate National Truth and Reconciliation Day. The logos were created by First Nation artists to honor the game's close ties to their communities across the country and to underscore the CFL's commitment to recognizing the past. Chris Chipak is a member of the Red Pheasant Cree Nation who designed the Saskatchewan Roughriders logo for this week's game. It includes a buffalo to embody the prairie spirit and the sun to represent the collective effort that he says is essential to reconciliation.
The one word I would have to describe this, I think, is the beginning. We got to start somewhere, and I would love to be a part of that process. And this was kind of let's see if it feels good and it feels right. And that's the thing with reconciliation is it takes a lot of groups to heal together, and it's not going to happen overnight.
The Indigenous-themed logos, Marcy, will be featured on players' helmets as well as in stadium programming, as well as on the television. And proceeds from merchandise sold will then be donated to support local First Nations groups. So a great initiative ahead of Truth and Reconciliation Day.
All right, thanks very much, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. School day number, let me get that for you. School day number 4 on the cycle this morning. And not too bad out there. If you're going to school, you won't need as many layers as you had the last few days. We don't have showers in our forecast, so that's good news for Winnipeg at least. We do have them in our forecast if you're going to school in Thompson this morning, so you could see some showers later this morning. We, in the commute, though, have good news. We have nothing to report. But if you do, call us, 788-3093. Coming up in the next half hour of Information Radio. As we were sharing yesterday, there's a new survey that found that many Canadians lack a sense of community. So we hit the street to ask where people here have been able to find belonging. And we're going to hear some of those responses. And if we get a chance, we'll also share a few more responses from our Facebook page, my Marcy Marcusa page, because during the show yesterday, a lot of you wrote in about the various ways that you find to connect. And lots of you with some wonderful ideas about how to go about it and about where you found community. So stay tuned as we have that ongoing conversation. Right now, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 13 degrees. Temperatures sticking close to that number throughout the morning. But we are going to warm up to 21 today. Lots of sunshine as well. Bit of a westerly breeze. It's a return of summer in September. Displaced Birchwood Terrace tenants want to know why the owner of the apartment building isn't footing the bill for their housing. The province has been paying for hotel rooms for dozens of people forced from the St. James building since June. Now, the tenants had to leave in May when the building was found structurally unsafe. Joyce Hilborn lived at Birchwood Terrace for more than 30 years. She wants the property owner, Ladco Company, held accountable for what happened.
They should take some responsibility for neglect. When you are owning a building, you should keep it up to standard. And they certainly haven't done that.
Latco has declined comment. A spokesperson for the province says they don't know how much they've spent so far housing the Birchwood Terrace evacuees. Estimates, though, show it could be more than $1 million. A tenant who faces eviction from the Sherbrooke Inn has won a little more time. About 7 people living at that Winnipeg hotel now face eviction. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
Neil Soersma bought the Sherbrooke Inn 3 months ago. At the time, he said he had no plans to kick out anyone living in the hotel. But now he says some residents have not paid rent in months. One tenant says he had an agreement that he could stay in exchange for working in the hotel. Soersma sent a letter in July saying he would no longer accept work in exchange for rent after August 1st. But the tenant says Soersma still owed him money. The commission was set to decide the matter, but instead, Soersma agreed to let the tenant stay until the end of October. Soersma also agreed to pay $1,000 to settle outstanding wages. Soersma told reporters 2 other tenants have already left, while a third has been ordered to leave. He's still in discussions with the others who have received notices. There are currently 21 people living in the 33-room hotel. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some parents in the Winnipeg School Division say schools need fundraising. They oppose the division asking schools to stop fundraising. The division says it can create a barrier for families and inequalities between schools. Samantha Nyquist has 2 children in Winnipeg School Division schools.
There's not enough funds to have certain things that kids need for school, to keep them up with, like the computer systems and stuff like that. They're lacking in funding, and their only way to get funding is by fundraising.
Superintendent Matt Henderson acknowledges schools have been stretched thin for years, but he says some of that can be relieved by re-examining where the money is going. The head of Heritage Winnipeg says she is angry after pieces of the city's history have been reduced to rubble. Cindy Tugwell says the city did not contact her organization about old building fragments at Air Canada Window Park. They include stone and metal columns from buildings dating back to the 1800s. Instead, those columns have been demolished as part of the park's redevelopment. Tugwell says Winnipeg has just lost some pieces of its history.
This is really getting frustrating with me, and a lot of people out, we're getting a lot of emails on this. This is going to be, I think a lot of Winnipeggers are upset that they were smashed.
A city spokesperson tells CBC the old columns don't hold official heritage status and could not be preserved. But Tugwell says Heritage Winnipeg could have worked with the city to remove the columns and find other uses for them. Now to Lebanon. Gridlock on highways out of southern Lebanon as thousands of people move north and away from the areas targeted by Israeli airstrikes. The strikes continue this morning, and the number of dead in Lebanon this week has now surpassed 550. At the same time, Palestinian officials say Israeli strikes in Gaza today have claimed at least 7 lives in Han Yunis. You can hear the latest national and international news on World Report at 8. First Nations in remote areas are trying to reduce stillbirths and infant deaths. Studies show the rate of stillbirths and babies who die in their first week of life is more than 2 times higher for Indigenous communities than the Canadian average. Opaskwayak Cree Nation has now hired 3 doulas to support pregnant women. Evelyn Fisher says she helps with grocery shopping, cooking, and nutrition advice, and she says it is a special bond.
If you are invited into that space where a woman is giving birth, you're invited into a very intimate, raw, vulnerable place, and it's very, very sacred. And just to be included in that space is something very special, and I feel honored every time I'm asked to be a part of it.
Fisher says expectant mothers also do traditional activities like creating a birthing bundle. And Cole Perfetti will be suiting up for the Winnipeg Jets again after the team has come to terms on a 2-year contract with the forward. The deal is worth $3.2 million a year. The 22-year-old Perfetti scored 19 goals for the Jets last season. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is now 7:35 Tuesday morning, and Abby's here with the forecast.
We're looking at a warm and sunny day ahead for Winnipeg all the way down to Morris. We're going to see clear skies in Dauphin and Gimli, while the northern regions will remain cloudy. Right now, Winnipeg at 13. We're seeing sunshine already make its appearance. It will be warm, a sunny day ahead. We will warm up to a high of 21 with some light winds. And tonight we'll see more clear skies and we'll cool down to 11. Heading west to Brandon, still 8 degrees at this time. Partly cloudy skies we're seeing there. We should see a mix of sun and clouds later in the day as this clouds will be clearing off, and then we'll get some breezy conditions in the afternoon. The highs will warm up to 23, and then we'll see some clear skies tonight. Moving north to Thompson, 6 and foggy at this time. You should see mainly cloudy conditions today with highs around 15, and tonight the clouds would linger and you cool off to 3 degrees. Further north in Churchill, it is 6 and cloudy. Expect mainly cloudy conditions this morning. Some showers will be felt here and there, becoming breezy as you get to the mid-morning period, and you'd only get to a high of 12 degrees. Down south in Dauphin, it is 12 and clear at this time. Today will feature a mix of sunny and cloudy conditions. That will clear by the noon period, and then becoming breezy in the afternoon, a high of 23. Gimli sitting at 10 and cloudy at this time, the sun trying to make its appearance also. For the Interlake region, expect a mix of sun and clouds with sunshine expected this afternoon and a high of 21. You'll see clear skies tonight. Steinbach cool at 12. You get some clear skies today. The forecast calls for mainly sunny conditions for that region, and you'd warm up to a high of 21. And in Morris, it's still cloudy now. The sun also trying to make its appearance at 10 degrees. The forecast for the Pembina Valley region includes a mix of sun and clouds, becoming sunny rather as you get to the noon period with some light breeze, and you should expect a high of 21. In Winnipeg, it's 13 degrees. We're seeing the sun make its appearance. It's going to be a sunny day ahead, and we're going to get to a high of 21.
Remember last hour when we were making jokes about canceling Corey?
Mm-hmm.
He's back.
I know.
We revalidated him.
That's true. And
There he is.
Yeah, and I had someone call the listener line to actually agree with me. They said they actually came here from South America, and they would take the change in seasons any day over the consistently hot.
There you go.
Weather. So
There you go. Corey was actually joking about being canceled because he was making a comment that he didn't mind the cooler weather. So I love that someone called you.
Yeah, I'm on team chilly. Let's do it.
What's happening on the commute?
Archibald and Mission, southbound Archibald in particular, there's a multi-vehicle collision blocking the southbound curb lane. So keep left to get around that. There is a tow truck on scene, but things are starting to back up there. That's southbound Archibald at Mission. If you see anything else going on out there, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Well, as we told you yesterday, we started a conversation here with you about how Canadians do not feel that they have a sense of community in their lives, or at least some Canadians. That came from a new survey that we told you about from the YMCA that found that 60% of Canadians feel disconnected. Now, it was an Angus Reid poll. Their members were polled, 1,500 people, accurate plus or minus 2.5%, 19 times out of 20. A third of those surveyed also said they lack a third space, which would be somewhere somewhere to gather outside of work or home to build connection. So we got so much response from you on our listener line and on our Facebook pages that we sent CBC Manitoba's community reporter out, Shanley Vidal, to the Forks yesterday. And she asked people about their sense of community.
Bob Roach, and I live in Winnipeg.
Do you have a sense of community in your life?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I love Winnipeg. I love the people, and we like it here, yeah.
Where does that sense of community come from? Do you have like special activities you do or a club you belong to?
We don't necessarily belong to any clubs, but we do have friends that we meet. As a matter of fact, we're meeting one of our friends here today, and our neighbors are friendly. It's a good community.
Do you have any advice for other people maybe who aren't feeling part of the community to help them feel more like they belong?
One thing is get to know your neighbors, and I don't know what else to say, but yeah, just try and be friendly with people around you.
My name's Nicole Lawson. So I'm here on a trip with my friends from Edmonton.
A new survey just came out, and it says that most Canadians don't feel a sense of community. They don't feel like they belong. What about you? Do you have that sense of community in your life?
I feel like I do. I feel like I don't live close to my family, but I've been able to create that with friends who want to do life together, and that suits me just fine.
Do you have any advice for other people who maybe don't feel that sense of belonging?
I would say find something that you love to do and go do it and you'll see other people come to you. So then you'll kind of be on the same path of doing those activities together, and it's just easier for your lives to align and build relationship, and you never know.
CBC Manitoba's community reporter Shanley Vidal out talking to some people at the Forks about how they build a sense of community. If you're just tuning into this conversation, as we mentioned, it yesterday really took off on our show. You can always weigh in at 788-3205.
Orange is not simply a color. It's an acknowledgement of truth, a shade of support, a step towards reconciliation. Join residential school survivors and allies September 30 at the Wasay Healing Center's Orange Shirt Day Walk for Survivors and Powwow, proudly sponsored by CBC. Walk starts at 11 a.m. at the Forks. Powwow is at 1 p.m. at the RBC Convention Center. Support truth. Step into reconciliation. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Time right now is 7:43 a.m. And are you going to head out to a Bisons game this fall in Manitoba? Well, a lot of people will because they're supporting the team. A lot of people might be prompted also because a longtime coach, Brian Doby, is going to be retiring after this, his 50th season with the team. But one of the things that Doby was mentioning yesterday was how awesome it is that this year their team has something really special going on, and that is kicker Maya Turner. She became last September the first woman to not only play in a regular season university men's football game, but also score points. The kicker scored 2 field goals for the U of M Bisons, the second one in double overtime, which earned the Bisons a 27-24 win at the time over the University of Regina Rams. Now, as Karen Pauls tells us this morning, and as we heard a little bit yesterday, but now we have a full report, Maya Turner is inspiring other young women.
Emily Beauregard's wish for her 18th birthday was to meet Maya Turner, the starting kicker and only woman on the University of Manitoba Bisons men's football team.
Oh my God, you were amazing!
On Saturday, her wish came true, catching the Bisons playing the University of Calgary Dinos.
I was watching your video and I was just like, I want to meet this girl. And I want to do the same as you do.
Oh, I appreciate that.
It is really like a men's world, but I think we can take our place in that.
Turner has already done that.
It's up, and it is good, no doubt about it. Maya Turner from 21 yards out.
Last year, she was the first woman to play and score in a regular season university-level sports men's football game. She made 2 field goals, including the game winner in overtime.
The Manitoba Bisons have won this homecoming football game on the strength of Maya Turner.
She instantly became a role model for other young women like Beauregard, who is also breaking ground at the college level in Quebec as a rookie kicker on the Sherbrooke Cégep men's football team, the first woman in the league.
Like she kicked like asses on the field, and now I can talk with her and she can give me some advice. And so I think like a lot of girls saw her and was like, holy shit, she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, I'm so humbled that she, like looks up to me and wanted to come out and see me play. I love to see other girls kicking footballs and playing on men's teams. I definitely didn't see a lot of that growing up at all, so I think that's really cool.
All the way from Quebec, coming to watch the Bisons play.
There initially was some doubt about having a female kicker on the Bisons, but the team has embraced Turner.
One heart.
And they welcomed Beauregard into the locker room this weekend, too. She fit right in.
It was very nice to see you win, because it was very sketch and I was very, very pissing on myself. So.
Beauregard and her father flew back to Winnipeg with the team. On Sunday, they got a tour of the University of Manitoba campus and the football complex.
Great, welcome to the locker room.
As the only woman on the team, Turner has her own changing room. But her coach, Brian Doby, says she's just one of the guys.
Her story has resonated across the country.
After 29 years, Doby is retiring. He's accomplished a lot, but says few things compare to this experience.
So symbolic of what anybody can do regardless of race, gender, etc. Anybody leading the way and taking a risk and putting themselves out there, getting out of their comfort zone and attacking something, and that's what Maya's done.
As for Turner, she's thrilled her accomplishment is inspiring other women who dream of kicking down barriers. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Your next chance to check out the Bisons in action is coming up with their home game on Saturday. This Saturday, the 28th of September. They will play the Regina Rams at Princess Auto Stadium, and the game starts at 5 o'clock.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
7:47 a.m., 13 degrees in Winnipeg, and the sun is starting to show signs of the sun, I should say, out there. How about I correct myself and speak properly? There are signs of sun in downtown Winnipeg that are starting to show after a cloudy start, but we are expecting a mainly sunny day and a high of 21 in the city. Well, coming up after 8 on the show, do you need 43 cases of bulk Scotch mints or maybe a custom-built coconut shredder? Well, we've got news for you. The Nutty Club is auctioning off all of its goods from their warehouse in Winnipeg, and some of the items are very unique. We're going to take you there and also relive some of that local history, so stay tuned for that. Right now, a bit of music, new music from Winnipeg indie rock band Wonder. This one's called Shauna. We're rocking it out. Feels like a Friday morning music on a Tuesday. That'll get you up and out the door. That's new music out of a Winnipeg group. They're called Wonder. Tune's called Sha-na-na. It is 10 to 8 right now on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. And next on the program, bears are breaking into garbage bins in Whiteshell Provincial Park and pretty easily as well. Ainsley Houndel lives near West Hawk Lake. Here's what she had to say about what she's been seeing.
We did see a bear this summer, and the one closest to us just sat there and we were able to watch him in action, opening the lids, helping himself, closing it, going into the next one, taking a bag into the forest, that sort of thing. You know, before we had garbage cages, and I don't necessarily think garbage cages are the answer, right? It's easy to say bring back the cages, but there are a lot of factors that need to be considered when making that decision. But definitely there has been a huge increase in, nuisance bears since we have these bins that are essentially just providing them with a food source.
Now, what she's referring to there is years ago, the garbage used to be stored in wood and wire structures, cages, if you will, before being carted off to the dump. But then recently they've been replaced by the big metal bins as described with these lids. Likely you would maybe see behind an apartment building here in the city. If you're watching the show on YouTube, by the way, this morning, there's lots of shots of what we're talking about and the bears that are concerning people in the area. So Ainsley shared those pictures with us with CBC, and we wanted to talk a bit more about this and how concerned people should be, or not. Michael Campbell's professor of environment, earth, and resources at the University of Manitoba and joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what did you think when you saw these images of the damage the bears did? Like, essentially, the lids were no match for them trying to get into this, clearly.
Well, I guess I have to say I have two things. In the first case, I was shocked to see the kind of containers that were being used. And then having seen this kind of containers, I wasn't surprised that the bears were getting into them. There's a lot of online content showing bears in exactly those kinds of garbage containers.
You said you were shocked to see these kinds of containers. Why? Are you referring there? Your last sentence would suggest that most people should know that a bear could get into this?
Well, I mean, there certainly is a lot of evidence to suggest that bears can get into those kind of containers. I've seen dozens and dozens of videos online showing bears that get into exactly those kind of garbage containers. And the rule with bears is if you remove the attractant, you remove the bear. If they can no longer get into it, the bears won't hang around.
So Ainsley Houndel, who lives near West Hawk Lake and took many of these photos that we're sharing, she says there's been reports of bears eating out of the garbage bins, as we mentioned, in the Whiteshell Provincial Park. But there's also an incident where a bear was eating from a bin that was close to a schoolyard. What's the concern if you interrupt a bear when it's eating in this way?
Well, it may become defensive of its food source, and that could lead to a negative interaction. Essentially, it could lead to someone being hurt.
Can bears get into, what's a proper thing, what's a proper receptacle for a bear if you don't want them to get in?
If you can open the container with a crowbar, it's not bear proof. That is basic Bear Smart 101.
So if you can open it with a crowbar, meaning it has to be like extra difficult, what's a test for what is a proper container? Ainsley was talking about the cages and such. What's your sense of that, those types of receptacles?
Well, the cages worked. The problem I'm sure that the park branch is dealing with is it makes it collection of garbage a lot more difficult. But there are commercial bear-proof containers available that are used in other parts of the world that bears can't get into. The opening mechanism has to be such that they can't get their paw in there with their claw and open it. Some bears in some parts of the world, like Yosemite National Park, for example, can get into cars.
How dangerous are black bears to humans? I mean, a lot of Manitobans have become really used to seeing bears. You hear people saying, well, they're just part of our life. Is there a concern that we might become too casual around them?
I would be very concerned that people become too casual around them because all it takes is one bear with a slightly more aggressive disposition to create problems like we had in Shamattawa this summer.
What should people understand if they encounter a bear in this way as it's eating? What should their behavior be?
Their behavior should be to walk away slowly, keep your eyes on the bear. So in all likelihood, in that situation, the bear is eating. He's focused on the food. I would say particularly at this time of year, where they're in hyperphagia. Like they're concerned about is putting on weight. And as long as he's not disturbed while it's eating, and you get out of there, that's exactly what you should do.
People have been saying they want the bins replaced as soon as possible. The province did send CBC a statement, so I'll read it to you here. It says, quote, Manitoba Parks takes bear safety very seriously. It is aware of the waste collection issue in the South Whiteshell region and is proactively working toward operating solutions, end quote. The province also went on to say to be aware that bears become more active, as you're talking about, in the fall as they approach hibernation season. What do you think of that, of the response from the province?
Well, it's probably, I understand where they're coming from, but it's probably too late in the sense that they should know, people within the province should know that those bins are not bear-proof. They wrote the documents themselves. If you look at the provincial government website on BearSmart, it says very clearly, if you can open it with a crowbar, it's not bear-proof.
What's the difference in, we don't have a statement from the government that explains to us why they wouldn't have put in better receptacles, but what's the difference in cost between something like what we're seeing in these videos and some of what you're describing that would be bear-proof? They
are much more expensive, far, far more expensive. You won't be able to find the price online. You have to ask for a quote. So they were significantly more expensive. So it is an expense, but I think when you're considering the lives of humans and bears, it's worth that investment.
Why aren't they standard? Is there a call anywhere to have, standard receptacles in places where you have, bears and other wildlife that are abundant?
That's a good question. I would probably put it down to just different jurisdictions. I mean, you've probably been to Riding Mountain National Park,
this summer, yeah.
And they have commercial bear-proof receptacles everywhere, and they're required within the park.
Do you know why I know that, Michael? Because I couldn't open the garbage can when I needed to throw something out. I literally couldn't figure it out. I had to have somebody come and help me lift the lid. It was so heavy, and the way that it latched was in a not in a intuitive way to me, and that was clearly because of the wildlife. Yeah,
exactly. It's so the bear with his claws can't get in there and open it.
Go on, please. Sorry.
I was just going to say they're very smart. Obviously, in some places they figured out how to get into cars. They've figured out how to get into trunks. They are strong enough to pull the car door open. So that's why you need. They say if you can open it with a crowbar, it's not bear-proof.
Anything to add that I haven't asked you about this morning?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I always ask people in case I know everyone's preparing to come on to the radio here. I want to make sure we covered all the bases for folks. Thank you very much for outlining some of your concerns around this as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Michael Campbell, Professor of Environment, Earth and Resources at the University of Manitoba. If you have not been watching on YouTube or following this story, you can find the photos and the video we've been referring to in these garbage receptacles online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. And I also want to thank CBC's Tessa Adamski, who spoke to some of the residents about their concerns. Let's go to Heather Wells now, who has our headlines. Heather?
Hi. Well, some parents in Winnipeg's largest school division are not happy about a move to put fundraising on hold. The Winnipeg School Division is asking its schools to limit fundraising. It argues fundraising can be a barrier for families and reveal disparities between schools. Peter Reimer has children in division schools, and he says officials should not be dictating to parents about whether they can fundraise. A tenant facing eviction from the Sherbrooke Inn can stay a little bit longer. About 7 people living at that West Broadway hotel have received eviction notices. The Residential Tenancies Commission held a hearing on one of the cases yesterday. We'll hear what happened in our next local news at 8:30.
If you have any updates on southbound Archibald and Mission, love to know. 788-3093 had been a problem earlier. A high of 21 degrees with sunshine today. Right now it's 13. Still ahead, we're going to hear more. Oh, just got an update. Archibald at Mission is clear. Stay with us.
On Cue with Tom Power. The Canadian actor Elliot Page teamed up with the British director Dominic Savage to make the new movie Close to You, an improvised film about a trans man coming home to his family in small-town Ontario. They'll be here to talk about the film and what happens when you tell a story like this without a script.
I'm really okay. In so many ways I am for the first time.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour,
It's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Thousands of Canadians and Americans make their living doing drug trials. Many of them are poor or marginalized. A new documentary reveals the risks faced by the people doing this unknown part of drug testing, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The United States is sending more troops to the Middle East. The Pentagon will not say how many or give details of their exact mission, but it is a response to the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Vehicles on the main road were in gridlock leading out of southern Lebanon. People tried to flee while shelling continued. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 550 people were killed by Israeli strikes yesterday. And this morning there are reports of more rockets on both sides of the border. Dozens of flights in and out of Beirut's airport are canceled. As Alison Northcott reports, Lebanese Canadians are watching closely and worrying about loved ones.
Being a Lebanese expat right now is like being on survival mode.
Sitting outside her apartment building in Montreal, Nassam Sharara says the last weeks have become increasingly stressful. She's a Canadian citizen who grew up in Lebanon and moved here 4 years ago to study.
We're scared to go to sleep at night because we're afraid that we might wake up to news that family members died or your house in your hometown has been exploded. Hi, Marwan.
Hello.
Sharara has been calling friends and family members in Lebanon to check in on them, including her parents who have evacuated their home and are staying in Beirut.
Everyone's trying their best to keep some sort of stability, but also be safe as much as possible.
The Canadian government is warning Canadians in Lebanon to leave and to avoid traveling to the area as the conflict between Israel and the militant group Hezbollah has intensified. Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly reiterated that warning Monday, saying commercial flights could become rare or even stop altogether. Sharara says so far her parents don't have plans to leave.
No one is prepared to leave just yet up until we see what's going to happen in the next couple of days or in the next couple of weeks.
She says leaving Lebanon for them would be a major disruption. So for now, they will live with the risk and hope things don't escalate even more. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
The Middle East is expected to feature prominently in Joe Biden's speech to the United Nations General Assembly. The outgoing U.S. president will begin his farewell to the world stage this morning. The CBC's Chris Reyes is covering the General Assembly and joins us with more. Chris, what can we expect from Biden's address?
President Biden's administration laid out 3 priorities ahead of the high-level week at the UN General Assembly. 1, addressing threats to peace and security. 2, providing better humanitarian aid to those affected by war, hunger, and climate change. And then finally, reforming the UN, and that includes expanding the Security Council. So expect those highlights to run through President Biden's speech today. President Biden will likely talk about the importance of tackling those priorities given the escalating tensions in the Middle East, the ongoing war in Ukraine, and the other challenges that require international cooperation. Biden has always been a stalwart supporter of the United Nations. He has often used these speeches on the global stage to take ownership of the U.S. role in championing multilateralism. Given that this is his final address to the UN General Assembly as President of the United States, he'll likely call on his fellow leaders to continue to fight for UN values.
Who else will we hear from today?
Also taking the podium on the first day of high-level week, members of the Arab group here at the UN, including Jordan, Qatar, and Algeria. These countries have been some of the strongest voices supporting Palestinian statehood and a ceasefire in Gaza. They've also never condemned Hamas. What they will say this week will give us a better sense of what they want and need from the international community in brokering peace in the Middle East. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address the Security Council today as well, in person for the second time since Russia invaded his country. Zelensky will likely make a case for his victory plan, which he's already presented to the U.S. This plan includes more military support and an urging to put more diplomatic pressure on Russia to come to the negotiating table. Zelensky will also meet with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau here at the UN today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in New York. The UN meeting means Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will not be in the House of Commons today, even as parliamentarians debate a motion to bring down his government. But Trudeau cannot escape the confidence motion in New York, not even when he appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Your party is 17 points behind in the polls, and this week your rivals are calling a vote to possibly force you out of office. Give the devil his due. What's their rationale?
Well, that it's a really tough time in Canada right now. People are hurting. People are having trouble paying for groceries, paying for rent, filling up the tank.
The Conservatives are putting forward today's motion. It simply says the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Time to go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what will you be watching for this morning?
Marcia, Pierre Poilievre and his team will rise to speak today, knowing they're already thwarted. But the drama here may be the point. It keeps their base pumped up, the fundraising flowing. For the Bloc Québécois, this fall is their moment to be big players again, an opportunity to seek concessions from the Liberals to suit the Bloc's agenda. So what does a win look like? How long will Blanchet play this game? And we'll see whether New Democrats in their remarks today mention that a legacy of the now dead Supply and Confidence Agreement, the pharmacare legislation, is before a Senate committee for review this week, and perhaps almost to a place where healthcare advocates no longer have to apply pressure to prevent this parliament from dissolving without it becoming law. The NDP leader continued to be heckled and harassed by Conservatives yesterday in the House as he tried to put tough questions to this government. Health Minister Mark Holland reminded Jagmeet Singh that all this was his call.
If the NDP can't stand up to the Conservative leader, then how are they going to stand up for Canadians?
There will be a second vote tomorrow that could be also considered a confidence measure. What can you tell us about that?
Well, in mid-August, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland adjusted the capital gains tax exemptions to address some concerns by farmers, entrepreneurs, others, that last spring's change to the inclusion rate unfairly lumped their businesses in with the wealthy Canadians that the Liberal government had intended to target. This change will require the passage of a new Ways and Means motion this week. That is a budget measure, a so-called money vote, that at least one opposition party is going to need to support. So we'll watch to see who that is.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Iranian officials do not believe any trapped workers are alive at the site of a coal mine explosion. A methane leak sparked the explosion on Saturday. At least 49 workers are believed to have died in the mine, about 500 kilometers southeast of Tehran. An estimated 70 workers were on site at the time of the blast. It is one of the worst industrial disasters in Iran's history. Nunavut could soon be getting its first road link connecting it to southern Canada. It would be part of a project connecting mineral mining to international shipping routes. The project also involves building a deep water port in the high Arctic. As the CBC's Mahanur Mubarak reports, it could also help lower the cost of living and be used to improve Arctic security.
A massive development project is being proposed for Canada's Central Arctic. If built, it would create a new deep water port for the mining industry and roads linking the area to the south. The corporation behind the proposal, West Kitikmeot Resources, signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nunavut government. The new harbour in Grays Bay will be available to mining companies to transport minerals like copper and zinc. The Canadian Navy would also have access to the facility to refuel its ships patrolling northern seas. Former Nunavut Senator Dennis Patterson has advocated for the project for more than a decade.
Our not-so-friendly neighbor, Russia, on the other side of the pole, are bristling with ports, airfields, and military bases. So this project has many benefits.
Among them, making food more available and accessible at a lower cost to northern residents, since West Kitikmeot Resources is proposing to construct 2 new land routes into the high Arctic. Wayne Gregory is the mayor of Cambridge Bay.
Because there are no roads going to the south, there's the extra added cost on everything right across the board for just the cost of living and anything that's being imported.
The project is still undergoing a permitting process. West Kitikmeot Resources hopes an environmental assessment will be complete in 2027, with hopes to start construction in 2030. Mahanur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. There's some light rain now falling in Flin Flon. Here in southern Manitoba, mostly sunshine for the day. In Winnipeg, little misty, 13 degrees. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This half hour on the show, the head of the Winnipeg School Division wants families to stop fundraising. We're going to hear from a parent this half hour, and we'd love it if you would weigh in. What are your thoughts on fundraising for school? Would you welcome stopping fundraising, or are you seeing it as necessary in your family school? You can always call us. We'll get your calls on this half hour if you get them in now, 788-3205. Also, this half hour on the program, Manitoba, it's your chance. Find out how you could own a lifetime supply of pickled beets or a whole chicken in a can, if that's your thing. The Nutty Club is auctioning off a piece of its history, and we're going to take you there to hear about some of the unique items that are for sale. So stay tuned. Let's go to Heather Wells first, though, for more headlines and news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, displaced Birchwood Terrace tenants want to know why the owner of that apartment building isn't footing the bill for their housing. The province has been paying for hotel rooms for dozens of people forced from the St. James building. The province has been paying since June. The tenants were forced to leave in May when the building was found to be structurally unsafe. Joyce Hilborn has lived at Birchwood Terrace for more than 30 years. She says Ladco, the owner, needs to be held accountable. And the head of Heritage Winnipeg says she's angry after pieces of the city's history have been reduced to rubble, demolished as part of the demolition of the Air Canada Window Park as that area is being redeveloped. We're going to hear more about just what it was, our city's history that has been demolished. We'll hear about it coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of our city's history, I wasn't joking about that whole chicken in a can thing. It's one of the things that Nutty Club has. Would you eat a chicken in a can, Abby?
Nope.
Corey?
If you took it out of the can.
Exactly. Take it out of the can and cook it.
But if it came out of the can, you'd be like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, if you roast it right, yeah, I'd give it a go. I think apparently it's good for soups, I heard, because we were talking about this yesterday.
The thing that actually stayed with me, we're about to hear the Nutty Club story, but is they made Thrills gum. Did either of you ever have Thrills gum?
No.
It was like bright purple gum, and it kind of tasted almost soapy, but if you liked it, then you loved it. It had this really unique flavor. So my mom loved Thrills gum. Yeah.
Awful.
I don't know. It was an acquired taste, but we're going to hear more from Nutty Club. Jim Agapito from our team was over there yesterday checking it out. Let's go to Abby first and find out more about this weather.
We're anticipating a warm and sunny day from Winnipeg to Morris. Clear skies will prevail in Dauphin and Gimli, while the northern regions will be seeing more of cloudy conditions. Right now, Winnipeg still stuck at 13, and the downtown we're seeing some misty conditions at the airport at 10. It will feel like summer today with highs reaching mid-20s. We're expecting a high of 21 for the city today, accompanied by some, gentle breeze from the west. And we see more clear skies tonight, though the temperatures will be dropping to 11, and up north, we're just seeing temperatures hover around 7 degrees. Down south, we're looking at temperatures around 13, and we're aiming for highs mid-20s.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, I know that Archibald and Mission is clear now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. But a couple things on the highways to keep an eye out for. Heard earlier that that Deacon's Corner heading towards the city, just a little bit slow going right now, heading westbound. So look over that. Probably construction. There's a guy who's kind of stuck in traffic for about 10 minutes or so. Gave us a call. Said it might be a bit slow going, as well as the eastbound south perimeter between Kenaston and McGilvery. It's just down to the one lane, your right-hand lane, and got a call that things are going pretty slowly there too. Thanks for that call there, Justin. So look up for that. Other than that, things seem to be running fairly smoothly here in the city, but if you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start with a bit of a talker, and I'm hoping you'll weigh in, parents of school-aged children. What are your thoughts on no more school bake sales, chocolate bar sales? The head of the Winnipeg School Division, as we have been telling you and sharing in the news, wants families to stop fundraising for things like school supplies and equipment. Superintendent Matt Henderson says it's about creating a level playing field for all students. He says fundraising can be a barrier for some families.
We've asked schools to stop charging for field trips. You know, many of our schools are doing no-fee lunch supervision. We're asking schools to use our tender to reduce the cost of school supplies. And in a similar vein, we're sort of thinking about what is the impact on fundraising on families that can't afford to do that. And I think at the same time, we've been taking a look at the disparity between some schools being able to fundraise and some not. You know, one of the examples that I often give is around play structures. There'll be some schools that can fundraise quite easily for a play structure, and others that simply can't. And then that's a disparity, that's inequitable. And so what we've said is, you know, in this particular situation is that we don't want any families fundraising for play structures. That falls under the purview or the umbrella of public education. And so our board has rightly budgeted to replace 4 per year. And so we're not saying that you can't fundraise or anything like that. We just want to be able to temper it a little bit and have schools think about that. I would also say around that, we know that we have families and parents who are so enthusiastic about supporting our schools, and we don't want to crush that by that's not what this is about. And we want parents and families to feel proud of their schools, to support it. But we really want to think everybody in our community to think about what fundraising does to the disparity between what schools can do.
Matt Henderson, superintendent of the Winnipeg School Division. Now, Samantha Nyquist is a parent who has 2 children attending schools within the division, and she disagrees with the division's decision.
Well, I think it's bogus, honestly, because a lot of schools, especially the Winnipeg School Division, is struggling. You know, there's not enough funds to have, you know, certain things that kids need for school, you know, to keep them up with, like, the computer systems and stuff like that. They're lacking in funding, and their only way to get funding is by fundraising, by running events. And you know, if anybody, like in the Winnipeg School Division, that's what we do. We get together and we help our children to raise the money that they need so we can get better learning and supporting for our kids. And that's how we look at it. So if you took away the fundraising, there would be nothing. It doesn't matter where you're from, honestly. You know, fundraising. Even in the neighborhood I live in, there's people that don't even have children, and they give because they know, you know, they've been down that road and stuff like that. And we have the support we need. You know, don't take away something that's working. Especially, and there's no competition. You know what I mean? Maybe Winnipeg School Division does better than the other, but why, you know, blame the kids for that? For their, you know, upbringing and their challenges, and you know, coming forward and you know, giving them all. You know, like that's showing them bad judgment. You know what I mean? Like, when they fundraise, it's not like the children don't benefit out of it either. My daughter goes to Inkster School. When they fundraise, and you know, if you make a certain profit, they benefit those children, right? Like, they can win prizes, they can do this and that. So it's not showing them that they're not appreciated for what they're doing. They're showing their appreciation the best they can. And you're taking that from them. Kids love to fundraise.
So that is a parent speaking with CBC, Samantha Nyquist. If you want to read more about this story, please go to our website. But I'd love it if you'd weigh in. What is the reality in your division? What's the reality of fundraising in 2024? How often do you do it? Do you support doing it? Would you like to get rid of it and have a different, the schools have a different way of funding for the things that will be needed? We welcome your opinions at 788-3205. And of course, what prompted this is the Winnipeg School Division asking families to consider stopping fundraising.
the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. Hi, I'm Phelan Johnson. As we acknowledge the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, join me for a very special program honoring the survivors and paying tribute to the children who never made it home. Monday, September 30th at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Radio 1 and on the Listen app.
It is 8:20 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and it remains at 13 degrees in Winnipeg and 7 degrees in Brandon and Thompson. Well, I took a thrilling leap, and I was wrong. Listeners wrote to me saying that Thrills gum, that purple soapy tasting gum, is in fact Canadian, which we know. Started in the 1940s, changed hands a couple of times in terms of companies, but it originated with O-Pee-Chee, not with Nutty Club. The reason I actually got that wrong is because over at Nutty Club right now, where they're clearing things out, they have these big packs of Thrills gum. So somehow they landed there, and maybe you could own that. Today's the last day for a chance to own a piece of Winnipeg's Nutty Club history. Are you in the need of pickled beets or 43 cases of Scotch mints? The Nutty Club is selling off what is left of its equipment, candies that are in-house, and food supplies in an online auction. The company announced last December it was wrapping up operations after 120 years of business out of their space in Winnipeg. There's some quirky items up for grabs. There's pickle ice freeze pops. There's an industrial-sized ice cream cone maker, which they may actually have found a buyer for by now. CBC's Jim Agapito learned more about that and more. He visited the auction yesterday.
Hi, I'm Gary Laidlaw. I'm representing GD Auctions, and we are conducting an auction of Scott Bathgate Nutty Club. There are 368 lots of individual types of equipment, candy, nuts.
They're perfect.
Yeah, they're perfect.
They're absolutely perfect.
You'd think being in open or whatever, they get hard, because I've had hard jelly beans before.
They're perfect.
They're perfect.
I love the jujubes, and these are all for sale. Yeah. What stood out to you?
There's a lot of different manufacturing equipment that was used quite a while ago. A peanut butter grinder. They have a popcorn line where they popcorn, they coat it. 3 individual machines that make ice cream cones. So you have a small ice cream cone, medium, large. It's kind of unique to have an ice cream cone manufacturing line in downtown Winnipeg, I would think. This is their newest equipment over here. It's actually fairly current. Up on the second floor, there's feed hoppers that would feed the product down into these machines, and then they go through and they'd be bagged, and then on the far side they would be put in boxes. Yeah, so 3 or 4 pieces in this room.
And who's buying this stuff?
It's being sold to a very large, diverse group of people. Processors and manufacturers looking at packaging equipment. There's some people looking at the manufacturing equipment. And then when it comes to the candy and the nuts, variety stores, there could be anybody's looking at that. There could be people who are just coming and trying to buy something that says Nutty Club on it and buy the last batch of Scotch mints that they're going to buy that says Nutty Club.
Gary, what do we have over here?
Oh, this is a popcorn popper, and it's used for grating popcorn. So you put in a certain amount of popcorn and you measure it in the graduated cylinder, and you try to find out which popcorn pops more. Let's say if it's probably crappy popcorn, it only goes to 34, and if it's really good, it goes to 45, sort of thing, you know.
Okay, so where are we off to now?
We're off to the second floor. The ice cream cone line is up here. So they've got the forms for the pointy cones, and they have the forms for the other cones.
Industrial size, 6 in a row of the small one, of the pointy ones.
Yeah.
6 in a row of the flat base kind of ones.
Yeah. We're selling this whole room as one unit. Like, we don't want to be stuck with one ice cream cone machine. Whoever buys it, they take everything.
And to take this out,
they're going to have to take it out the window by crane. Auctions they're kind of an interesting thing because they're advertised internationally, and people are always looking for certain things. Like the ice cream cone machines, we have an equipment broker from San Antonio, Texas here, and he has a group of buyers from Mexico that are looking at purchasing the ice cream cone line. And I thought that was not going to be sold. Someone really has to want something like that to put that much effort into it. We have 3 full pallets of 1 whole chicken with chicken broth in a can.
Without giblets and neck.
Yeah. So I don't know what anybody would do with that, but it's for sale. This is a tumbler for coating candy and nuts. So you put it in there with every sugar, whatever, and you roll it around, and it's pure copper.
So this is the peanut butter machine.
So you throw in the nuts in the top, you put whatever salt, whatever. So it grinds it, adds the salt, cool. Old-fashioned.
Ooh, sugar's coming out.
Okay, we're gonna go to the candy store now.
Okay, take me to the candy shop.
Try these jelly beans. They've been open for a while, and they still seem to be as fresh as can be.
They're still fresh?
Yeah, try one.
Okay.
What do you think?
They're great.
There is all sorts of stuff. I talked to the building manager for Scott Bathgate, and he said that, like, when it comes to the candy items, they actually did not believe in best before dates. So most of the candy does not have a best before date.
Talking about the prices and range of auction, how is it decided?
It's the online auction is actually quite interesting. Everything starts with a $5 initial bid, and then people bid on top of that. There's going to be a closing time for each lot. When it gets close to closing, let's say it's 3 o'clock, someone might, bid $5 and someone else bids 10, and then it really takes off right at the very end. So if it's not that interesting, it might just sell for, next to nothing.
CBC's Jim Agapito with auctioneer Gary Laidlaw at the Nutty Club in Winnipeg. The online auction ends today, and you can find some links in our story online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. That's where you can also see some photos of Nutty Club and the history and read more about it. A piece put together by my colleague Darren Bernhardt. And I just want to mention a couple of the comments, because Darren posted that piece online and people are weighing in now about Nutty Club. So Tony Gransky writing in memories. When I was a young rascal over half a century ago, Tony writes, we basically all grew up on Nutty Club, good stuff. And then I was still trucking before retiring, and I had the pleasure of being out in that area. The Pioneer Warehouse is where Jim was, by the way, and that is at 149 Pioneer, just by the ballpark in Winnipeg. What I'm wondering about is the big... It looks like a mural. It may be a sign, but the Candy Man, right? The guy that looks like he's made of peppermints. Will that stay or go? That building was declared a heritage building in June 2017. It's mostly vacant for years. But that sign on the side of it, I'm guessing will stay. It's very iconic to Winnipeg. A couple more comments from people going down memory lane with news that Nutty Club will be finally no more. Enjoyed their prize popcorn as a kid, Carter Davidson said. Sorry to hear they're closing, a part of Winnipeg for many years. And a lot of people writing in about the different candies. Ricky Day saying, no, the raspberry drops. I know of one place I can get them, and I'm going to go today to buy them all. I'm sad about this. And then folks writing in about the iconic pink popcorn that would leave their fingers stained. It's 8:28 a.m. and just before the news, we're going to slide in a bit of music. This is Tennyson King and All of You.
Smoky city, dressed I am ready. City lights so blinding and bright. My ears are dim, the streets are singing, telling me everything's alright. Can't you walk the show that will kindly destroy you? Neither destroy you. You only die to walk. Taste of the night, the flavor is right. Let me stay ever and ever. Don't you bring me down, I want you around. Let me love you ever and ever. Can't you walk the show? I will kindly destroy you.
tune's called All of You on CBC. We're listening to Tennyson King and Kim Yang. Together, they both grew up in large Asian cities, Tennyson in Hong Kong, Kim in Taiwan, and relocated to Canada at a young age. And now they're sharing the single together. You're on 89.3 FM, and your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30, 13 degrees. Summer is back, and so is the sunshine today, a high of 21, warmer through the week. Displaced Birchwood Terrace tenants want to know why the owner of the apartment building isn't footing the bill for their housing. The province has been paying for hotel rooms for dozens of people forced from the St. James building since June. Now, the tenants had to leave back in May when the building was found structurally unsafe. Joyce Hilborn lived at Birchwood Terrace for more than 30 years. She wants the property owner, Ladco Company, to be held accountable.
They should take some responsibility for neglect. When you are owning a building, you should keep it up to standard. And they certainly haven't done that.
Ladco has declined comment. A spokesperson for the province says they don't know how much they've spent so far housing the Birchwood Terrace evacuees. Estimates show it could be more than $1 million. Some parents in the Winnipeg School Division say schools need fundraising. They oppose the division asking schools to hold off on fundraising. The division says fundraising can create a barrier for families and inequalities between schools. Samantha Nyquist has 2 children in Winnipeg School Division schools.
There's not enough funds to have certain things that kids need for school, you know, to keep them up with like the computer systems and stuff like that. They're lacking in funding, and their only way to get funding is by fundraising.
Superintendent Matt Henderson acknowledges schools have been stretched thin for several years, but he says some of that can be relieved by re-examining where the money's going. A tenant facing eviction from the Sherbrooke Inn can stay a little longer. About 7 people living at the West Broadway Hotel have received eviction notices. The Residential Tenancies Commission held a hearing in one of the cases yesterday. But before the commission reached a decision, the owner and the tenant reached a deal. The tenant says he had an agreement with the previous owners to work at the hotel in exchange for rent. The new owner told residents he would no longer accept work in exchange for rent, but the tenant says he was still owed money. The owner has agreed to let the tenant stay until the end of October and pay $1,000 to settle outstanding wages. History buffs and heritage groups are outraged to find some of Winnipeg's past reduced to rubble. Stone and metal columns from buildings dating back to the 1800s are left in ruins after the demolition of Air Canada Window Park. The demolition is part of the city's redevelopment of the downtown park, but local historian Christian Cassidy says the demolition site includes pieces of old columns which had been installed as historical features when the park was built in 1983.
At one point, somebody obviously felt that these were important enough building fragments to save them, put them in the park. They all had interpretive plaques describing what they were, and sadly, almost 40 years later, they have no value at all.
And that park was built in 1985. A city spokesperson tells CBC the old columns don't hold official heritage status and could not be preserved. But Heritage Winnipeg says it should have been consulted because it would have worked with the city to have those items removed and reused. Well, remote First Nations across Canada are struggling to support pregnant women in their communities. Studies show the rate of stillbirths and babies who die in their first week of life is more than 2 times higher for Indigenous communities than the Canadian average. Some of the risk factors include pre-existing medical conditions, young maternal age, and reduced access to prenatal care and good nutrition. Evelyn Fisher is one of 3 doulas hired for support by Opaskwayak Cree Nation. Fisher says they help pregnant women with grocery shopping, cooking, and nutrition.
We find that classes are very successful and people come back because they get that sense of they're welcome, they're safe, and they can share.
Fisher says expecting mothers also do traditional activities like creating a birthing bundle. You can find more news. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. You can also check out the CBC News app.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Joni Nicolo, thank you to our News Center crew, as well as those in our live crew this morning. Kevin Ipatebo, behind the controls of YouTube, as well as Abby Adiyemi, behind the controls of the board, and Corey Funk, who's here covering the commute. Speaking of which, Corey, what do we know now?
Yeah, just a reminder that today, actually, La Jamaudière between northbound and southbound between Abnoji-Mikana and Capson is going to be closed for electrical work until the 25th. So until tomorrow. So that's going to be, they will be open during rush hours, but closed. So it's just heads up if you're heading down La Jamaudière today. That's going to be very slow going.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
And Abby?
I'll tell you, the sun is already making its appearance. We're going to enjoy mostly sunny skies, warm temperatures with highs ranging from 12 in Churchill to 20 to the mid-20s for most part of the southern part of the province, from Winnipeg, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, Steinbach, Morris. Skies will be clear tonight, and then we deep down to 3 in the northern part of the province, and we go to 11 for down south. But enjoy the sunshine today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Big thanks to our team of associate producers who work on all of our programs here at CBC Manitoba, and thanks to our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care, be well, everybody. The Current's coming up next. Stay with CBC.